IB Nation, welcome back to another edition of the Irish Breakdown podcast. Sean Davis right there. I'm Brian Driscoll, and we are here to break down the Notre Dame victory over Stanford. The Irish, Sean, went out and did what they needed to do. They did what you're supposed to do when you're a really good football team and you're playing a team that's not as good as you. Notre Dame dominated, got off to a little bit of a rough start, but pretty quickly you saw that if you clean up a couple things, this team's going to take off, and that's exactly what they did, Sean. So Notre Dame goes out tonight, or today, I guess it ended up going into tonight because of a weather delay that kind of anticipated. My wife anticipated that. She was looking at the weather, and she's like, if this game's still going on around 6 o'clock, it might get delayed for a little bit because we saw what the weather was coming in, Sean. But it was 42-0 at the end of the third quarter when that weather delay came. Notre Dame basically ran the clock out in the fourth quarter. Won that game, scored one touchdown in the fourth quarter to go 49-7. The Irish outgained Stanford 477-200. Notre Dame had more rushing yards than Stanford had total yards. Notre Dame had more passing yards than Stanford had total yards. Absolutely dominant performance from Notre Dame, Sean, that honestly could have been a lot worse, but this is a big, big win. This is exactly how Marcus Freeman's team needed to look coming out of their bye week, especially after the wildness of last weekend.
Yeah, Marcus Freeman has shown during his tenure that he can prepare teams during a bye week. They get to this season, which is something we'll look forward to. But you have to be very, very, I don't even want to say happy. You have to be ecstatic about the improvement. And what I mean by that, you take the Louisville game and people were still complaining, right? And so you say to yourself, okay, they're trending in the right direction. In my opinion, I saw some things in that game to say, if we clean some things up, we can improve. We come back, Riley Leonard, something I talked to you about that I wanted to see on yesterday. I don't care about stats with this kid. As the quarterback, you have to be a source of confidence for the team. And I saw this young man playing with confidence today. He missed some throws. There's some other things that I know he wishes he had back. The great house throw early in the game. Some of the throws to the outside, one to Bo Collins, once to Chris Mitchell. Easy throws, he missed them. He can correct that, become more consistent at that. But he's playing with confidence. The way he ran the ball, he seemed like he was running more confidently. He was juking 3-4 defenders that had him in space. He was just playing the game with a different joy. And it seems like a little bit of weight that was on his shoulders prior to the bye week were kind of lifted off of that. We can break that down and get into it as we talk about the offense. Sure. But I was excited to see that young man playing with confidence, playing with joy, and you saw how it impacted everybody else around him. That's what you want to see for your quarterback.
That's one part of the game, Sean, and you did bring this up to me before the game. You brought this up to me, like, I just want to see him play confidently. I had a friend of mine also that called me earlier today, and when I was on my way out earlier today, was like, look, I just need to see Riley Leonard play confident, because I think if they do, man, this team could roll. So you said the same thing. Here's the other part too, Sean. I was talking to my dad during the weather break, and early in this game, I felt like Notre Dame came out not flat, because I thought the offense was moving the ball right away. I mean, the offense literally never got stopped by Stanford. They stopped themselves twice. They never got stopped. They got stopped twice by themselves, and they got stopped once by the clock ran out at the end of the game because they're about to punch another one in. And, but you just had a couple mistakes, right? You had the holding penalty by Anthony Knapp, and then you forced the punt. The defense comes out. They're on their heels. Stanford goes right down the field and scores. And you just didn't see that same kind of energy on defense. And in the past, when the offense or the defense or when the team came out a little bit just flat, they didn't always bounce back at all, or it took a while. What I liked about this game, Sean, is outside of really the first drive and a half of this game, Notre Dame was able to change the course of the game. You know, I mean, you have the mistake on offense, and Anthony Knapp has 2 mistakes on 3 plays, gives up the hold, then gives up a sack on third down. Defense lets Stanford go right down the field. I don't even think they got to a third. Yeah, the only third down they got to was the touchdown run on that drive. Notre Dame's offense answers with a touchdown, and then once again, the Notre Dame defense allows them to kind of get going. So you're going into the second quarter, they're moving, and then Howard Cross had that big sack. And I thought that kind of reignited the defense, and we saw them immediately just start to. And even before that, there was some popping going on that series a little bit, Sean, where this team was able to kind of shake off the rust or the early game. I don't know what it was that we haven't seen this team do a lot in Marcus Freeman Center. And Sean, you said, well, not a good team, including against bad teams. When we saw, look, this isn't a whole lot different than how it started against Northern Illinois. You know, offense goes right down the field, scores a ton, and you could just see there wasn't a ton of energy. Even though the offense was moving the ball, there was a little bit of that in this game, Sean, but they were able to kind of, okay, let's get this going. Let's get this going. And a lot of it was because you saw the veterans going out there and making plays. And that's another thing too, Sean, is you know, obviously get into specific players as we jump into the offense and the defense. But one of the complaints we had on our show, and I know you and I have talked a lot about this in private conversations, is the young players are primarily the drivers of the success of this football team up to this point season, outside of Xavier Watts and to a degree Benjamin Morrison. And in this game, you finally saw the veterans say, okay, it's our time to step up and get this thing done. And that really reignited this football team in a big way, Sean, that they really needed in the home crowd. And Angela was at the game. She was down in the field. She actually has her watch monitors noise. And she said her watch was going off more than it's ever has because it says, hey, loud, loud sound environment. She's like, it has never gone off this much. So the crowd was into it. When the players gave the fans something to be excited about, the crowd responded and was very loud, and Notre Dame was able to get a dominant win. So those are things early on, Sean, that I look at and I say, hey, man, we saw some stuff in this game that we haven't seen a lot from a Marcus Freeman coach football team, because a lot in the past, when they were a little sloppy early, penalties, fumbles, a lot of missed tackles early, that just kind of continued for 60 minutes. That's just who they were in that game. Tonight, Sean, we saw a team come out a little rusty, figure it out, make changes as a coaching staff. But more importantly, the player said, okay, let's go. Guys, we're fine. Let's go out there and make plays. And from that point on, from that Howard Cross sack on first down on Stanford's second drive on, this game was an absolute destruction by the Irish of Stanford. And honestly, if not for a couple mistakes by Notre Dame, this game could have been way worse. And I think it probably would have been worse if they didn't have that weather delay, because I think they would have come out and just really rolled them in the fourth quarter, continued to roll them in the fourth quarter.
I just really want to talk about that play, Howard Cross. It was supposed to be a screen play. He was supposed to be cut block, and the effort he made to avoid the cut block and then to apply pressure and eventually get the sack. Absolutely amazing play to shut that drive down. And like you said, from that point, everything turned. But this is what we asked for, right? We asked for guys like Riley Mills and Howard Cross to be leaders. When there are times to make plays in the game, the young players need to be able to look towards you, right? As they're getting their footing in a game early in the game, and Troy Taylor is doing his thing, calling plays, getting to the outside for the perimeter run game, which you saw Louisville do. He did the same thing. He tried to copy that with his team, with that less talent that they have, and he had success. It took a big-time leader to make a play to say, okay, we're not having this anymore. We're done. Let's take this game over. And that's exactly what the youngsters followed their lead, and everything went from there. Even with the refs had one of their worst games today.
Oh,
some of the
man,
worst calls I've seen.
Awful.
And it still could not stop this Fighting Irish avalanche after that play.
I would say this: Stanford never actually got in the end zone in this game, Sean.
No, because that wasn't a touchdown.
Got in the end zone in this game. Exactly.
No.
I know they got 7 points, but they never actually got in the end zone in this game. In my opinion,
that definitely should have been a review. It should have been a fourth down. Absolutely. I don't understand why they didn't even take a look at it. But once again, you talk about leadership, everyone doing their job. The playmakers is obvious. The big-time playmakers are your younger players on this team. And we're talking about losing one young playmaker in Boubacar Traore. But you still have enough in the tank of young playmakers to follow up with that and continue to press the issue. You get a Josh Burnham back with a big game. Bryce Young gets better snap after snap. Ladies and gentlemen, he's going to be a monster. He's going to be a monster. Let me tell you something. There's a lot to be happy about. I know the competition wasn't that good today. I know that, right? You talk about the two big wins, the monstrous wins being against Purdue and Stanford. We understand that. But what this meant today was totally different than what we saw against Purdue. There was growth today. There was growth in the passing game. There was growth, even though you texted me early about the wide receivers. There was growth with the wide receivers, right? I saw the tight ends.
Yep.
I saw the tight ends with a little bit better body language today. All the tight ends. I saw multiple formations. I saw Notre Dame with some diversity in the run game. Everything we wanted to see and we've been asking for, we got it. And I think Mike Denbrock held some things back because they were able to be dominant enough. We were asking, get Riley comfortable, implement some RPOs. We saw that, especially in the red zone, because it's wide open.
We'll have a lot to say when we get to the offense about the RPO game, Sean, no doubt.
Absolutely. Do what this young man does best. Get him comfortable. Obviously, they did that over the bye week and implementing those things. I had no problem with them coming out early and trying to throw the ball, right? Do that by all means. You know Stanford's going to come out and try to load the box. Take advantage of that. The fact that they had comfort in saying this is what we're going to do, penalties, and Anthony Knapp, like you said, 2 or 3 plays, it is what it is. Marcus Freeman did say, with this young man, we're sticking with him, and he's going to have to get better play by play. We can discuss that another time.
Another day. We'll discuss that later in this show. Absolutely. But yes, that's going to need to be done.
I'm sure when you and Vince break down the film of the offensive line, you guys will get to that. Yeah. But you have to be happy with this win.
You look at it, it's okay. Can Marcus Freeman consistently get his team emotionally up for games, right? Like that's the question that we have. The reason Marcus Freeman's longest winning streak is 5 games, which I believe he had during his first year, is because you can't get that consistency. And we're like, okay, how are they going to be coming out of the break? They're facing an inferior opponent who's kind of got whooped their last 2 games. How are they going to be? And I think they came out, like we said, Sean, and a little bit of a slow start, but they rebounded quickly and did what you needed to do. And here's the thing too, Sean, for me was really key. You're up 21-7 at halftime. And, okay, you're in control, but Stanford's going to start off with the ball. You know, like this is kind of a big drive. You back them up. They get a couple plays, and I'm kind of thinking like, let's see how this team responds. Because you think you got them backed up to the 3. I'm like getting Northern Illinois flashbacks, right? Like I got a little bit of a, oh, man, this is just, they get that big run and then the big catch. They buckle down again. And they make the big stops, and then the offense gets the ball. They go right down the field and score. And then the defense makes a big play. They go right down the field and score. And you're just like, okay, this is what Notre Dame was supposed to be, Sean. And that's really what I said to a buddy of mine. I said, this is what, when I envisioned before the season what I thought Notre Dame was going to look like as a football team, this was it. And this wasn't even like a vintage, like, oh my gosh, everything went perfect. I can't imagine them playing better football. Like, yeah, I can still play a lot better football. A lot of missed tackles, some mistakes on offense. You fumble the ball, in Stanford territory. There's all these things you can point to and say, you got to clean that up. You got to clean that up. You got to clean that up. And that's where you want to be as a football coach. It's like, yeah, we won 49-7. And I don't know if we can play any better than that. I mean, Sean, I've played in games like that. I've coached in games like that. We're like, I don't know if we can play any better than that. You know what I mean? This is definitely not that, which is actually, I'm not saying that as a negative. I'm saying that as a positive. This, like the Purdue game was just like, Purdue was just so overmatched from the jump. This game was about both sides of the ball, coaching staffs making adjustments. The stuff that was hurting Notre Dame early turned out to be devastating for Stanford later because Notre Dame adjusted and made plays on it. I mean, that little speed option and the quick pitch fake, those things were hurting Notre Dame early. And second, quarter, all of a sudden, third quarter, they're making plays on it and getting negatives. Josh Burnham making a huge play, which we'll talk about. Like, that's what this was. It was great preparation, Sean. It was great coaching. It was great playing. It was bouncing back from mistakes and adversity. Anthony Knapp had a horrible first drive, but he didn't let it bother him the rest of the game. You know what I mean? Like, he did. Like, we'll break it down more, but like that, all that was there. Bo Collins goes out and makes that fumble, and you can see it in his face. He was like, "Yeah, it's my bad. That was stupid." But it didn't bother. He goes out later and catches a 50-something yard play, biggest pass play of the season, right? You saw a lot of that, Sean, and you saw a team that kind of came out of this break and wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel. It was a football team that said, okay, let's play to our strengths. Who are we? What are we good at? Let's play to our strengths. And finally, it was a game where you had veteran football players stepping in and saying, hey, this has got to be our team. Thanks, Young Bucks, for doing what you've been doing, but now it's our time. Whether it was Riley Leonard, Bo Collins, the defensive tackles, Riley Mills, Howard Cross, that was probably my most exciting takeaway, was watching those two just dominate in this game. I thought Jack Kaiser was super active early in the game. Xavier Watts was Xavier Watts, and they lost their kicker on the first play of the game, and they were good. They were good. I mean, you know what I mean? So you had so many different players stepping up and saying, Coach, don't worry, we got this. And that was a great thing to see, Sean, and really what made this game, just more than, okay, yeah, you dominated a better team, but just to see all those, or an inferior team, just to see all that stuff, you say, boy, if they can now build on this, well, this team might be on the verge of doing something here, Sean, and I don't know how you're not excited about that after a game, man.
We definitely saw a residue of a team that could become a great team if they continue to trend in this direction. And that doesn't mean that they're not going to have any more close games. Quite possibly they're going to have some tough games coming up, 2 or 3. But if they continue to go with the same trajectory that we saw, especially in the past game, because one thing I think a lot of people don't understand about this defense that I think Al Golden does is, a fantastic job of pointing this out consistently. These kids are really smart. They're physically gifted, but the way they can take coaching and then adjust on the fly, they adjust on the fly. I saw adjustments today, play to play, series to series. You just talked about it. Shutting down that perimeter run, dealing with the RPO, dealing with the option, and just shutting that down and basically taking it away from Troy Taylor. Like he had to go to something else. And that was something that I thought was absolutely amazing. And then when you do that and you can pick up and understand what you're supposed to do quickly, the athleticism and the speed takes over. And that's what you saw from this defense. Once they got it, after that Howard Cross play, and they figured out they had seen Stanford enough and saw what they were trying to do to them schematically, the talent just took over. And it was a wrap. Anytime they came and brought pressure, it was lockdown in the secondary. There was one double move when they were backed up. The Iron Maynard had a chance against Christian Gray, and Daniels overthrew the pass and threw it out of bounds.
And part of the reason he missed that was you had Xavier Watts screaming over off the hash. Now, I think a better throw, that's a completion.
That's a completion, yeah.
But maybe he gets lit up by Xavier Watts, and that's what I think he saw. But correct, outside of that, it was like there wasn't a whole lot there in this game, man. There really wasn't. There really wasn't. Sean, we're going to, just so everybody understands what we're going to do, we're going to break down the offense and defense next, little special teams. We're going to answer super chats at the end. So if you want to get your thoughts in, go ahead and drop us a super chat. If you have a question you want us to address about the game, go ahead and get that in a super chat form as well, Sean. But we're going to go to offense next. But before we do, folks, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, share this podcast, give us a 5-star review. Make sure you're signed up to message boards at irishbreakdown.com. And we're going to all be in a pretty good mood because Notre Dame is now 5-1 and off to a red hot start coming out of the bye week, Sean. As we said this week, we're going to learn a lot about this Notre Dame football team coming out of the break. And so far, so good with the way that Notre Dame performed in today's victory. So we're going to dive into the offense next, Sean. And, there are going to be things that we'll address that obviously need to get better and things along those lines. But as I'm going through this and I'm breaking the game down, and I was writing my first half article about, what I saw from the first half, the thing I'm looking at, I'm like, I was frustrated because I was like, boy, you were a couple just boneheaded plays away from really having the breakout performance that we thought they were going to have, or that we thought this team could do somewhat regularly coming into the season, right? Which is a team that can run the ball, a team that's got a quarterback that's dynamic, can make plays, a team that, can throw the ball effectively. We thought the transfers would be impactful. They've been kind of hit or miss. Chris Mitchell's been mostly miss. Bo's been a little up and down. Come out in this game, Sean, the offensive line's got these issues. How are they going to be? Is Riley going to figure it out? And, I was talking with a friend of mine before the game, and he's like, it's not that I don't think Riley can figure it out or don't think this offense get better. It's just, I need to see it. And I was like, that's fair. Well, we saw it today, Sean. I mean, we saw it. So, well, I got to tell you what, man, when you look at this offense and I know Stanford's not that good, but I'll say, I texted you this after, during the break, and I texted several friends this. If Notre Dame plays offense this way, even with some of the mistakes, I mean, honestly, but if Notre Dame plays like this the rest of the year, this team won't lose another game the regular season. And you mentioned earlier they're going to play some close games. Fair. But I think we both agree on this. If they play like this the rest of the way, they won't have a competitive football game the rest of the way. No. They will smack the next 6 teams on their schedule. Now, it's not realistic to expect them to play like this every single week. But if this can become more of the norm from a play calling standpoint and execution standpoint, I thought it was watching the game, Sean. We'll get into specifics of it, but I just saw a confidence level start to grow more and more and more. And one of the reasons I said fast start was so important in this game is because this offense got a little bit of a confidence boost last game against Louisville, and then it kind of went away after the fumble, and then Riley got banged up, and they just kind of say, hey, let's just get out of this thing with the win and get to the bye. But saw a little bit of confidence coming out. They really needed another big confidence boost, and you started to see this offense playing with a lot more confidence, a lot more swagger, a lot more physicality. They had more of the aura that we saw late in the fourth quarter against A&M, where the offensive line was starting to talk that mess a little bit. Jeremiah Love was starting to talk that mess a little bit. They desperately needed that, Sean, to have that confidence boost, and they got it. I mean, they absolutely got it. You saw that growing throughout the game, Sean, that this is like, hey, when we get the ball, we expect to go down and score we think we can score every time, but we expect to score every time. And man, that was fun to watch from this group.
This team is talented, but the biggest progress I think we've seen from this team is their toughness and their maturity as a team and their leadership. We saw toughness, maturity, and leadership. I want to point out, last year, they go through that tough 5-game stretch, right? They get to the end of that, they're just done. Like, they're gassed. They have nothing left. They lose a tough game to Louisville that they were in and had the opportunity to win if they were tough enough to come up with certain plays and make plays offensively. Against Louisville this year, once again, coming to the end of a tough 5-game run, disappointing loss to Northern Illinois, what do? They make the requisite plays, even after a tough turnover to start the game and when everything is going against them. They found a way, the inner fortitude to turn things around, make the plays, and eventually pull away from Louisville. They take that into the bye. They have the questions, but they have the answers. And you felt like even coming out of the Louisville game as a team, players and coaches, they felt like, you know what, we have the answers. We got it. We know where we're going. We know where we can go. Let's figure it out during the bye week. And it seems like they did that. Regardless of who the competition is, this is the standard. Doesn't matter if it's Stanford coming out of the bye. Doesn't matter if it was Georgia Tech, USC. It doesn't matter. This is who we're going to be week to week. And this is the level we're going to play with, or the level we're going to play at. And I think Marcus Freeman mentioned that in the teleconference when he was asked, big picture, what do you want to do? We want to play to our best capabilities. That's it. And if we do that, we're going to win games. And I think you pointed that out. If they play this game the rest of the season, they're going to pretty much blow everyone out. Maybe might not be 49-7.
Right, because this performance wins. Maybe only beats another team 31-17
Absolutely.
or 31-10. Absolutely. Not everybody's on the same level of Stanford. It doesn't mean that they're going to win. They're going to be Georgia Tech 49-7. They're going to be Virginia's 49, Navy, Army, USC 49-7. It means they're going to dominate every opponent, whether that means you win by 42 or you win by 20 or 17, whatever the case may be, Sean. That's the point. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I heard there was some pushback to what Marcus Freeman said on Thursday when he was asked about, sort of expectations for this team. And he said basically, correct me if I'm wrong, something along the lines of, it's playing to our potential, and it's not about a record. It's not about a score.
Yeah.
And some people didn't like that. And I understand. Well, I guess I sort of understood where they're coming from, but I didn't agree. And you and I talked about this the other night, Sean. But this is exactly what he's talking about, guys. I'm not going to set an arbitrary standard on what this football team can be. You may say, hey, it's 11-1 and hopefully a win or two in the playoff. No, it's not that. Well, it's averaging 40 points a game. Okay, fine. But it's not that. It's our goal and our objective is to be the best, to play to our potential.
Yes.
And my point was, if you play to your potential, the score and the record will take care of itself. That's the point. If Notre Dame would have played to their potential against Northern Illinois, we'd be talking about a 6-0 football team right now. If Notre Dame would have played to its full potential against Texas A&M, it's not a 4-quarter game. It would have been probably a 3-quarter game. And that's the point that Marcus Freeman has hit. And he said this multiple times, but because there's a little bit more of a, maybe it's still an angst built up from the fan base because of that Northern Illinois loss, which I understand. It's like maybe they're asking him to say something different. And I'm like, I don't care about that. It's play to your potential, because this football team is better than every team on their schedule. And when play to that potential, whether it's during stretches of a game or for an entire game, this is what we see. And it's the second time we've seen them come out and just absolutely, destroy a football team where you kind of knew by halftime, this is about to be over. Now, this game wasn't as dominant as the Purdue game because Stanford, I think, is a little bit better than Purdue, and Notre Dame had a couple mistakes, but it was that kind of dominant performance. And that's where I think Marcus Freeman's coming from is our goal is not to win, to beat Stanford. Like, what if he said, hey, our goal this weekend is to win 34-17? Well, no, it's to be the best team we could be and play to our potential. And things, I don't think they did because there were some mistakes, but overall, this is the kind of dominant performance you want to see from your team, and especially from your offense. Because at the end of the day, Sean, you pick apart a defense and, you had that first drive, you gave up this, but they gave up one freaking touchdown the whole game, sort of. You know what I mean? Yeah. I still say sort of, because I don't think he got in. And I can't even believe they didn't review it. Horrible officiating call. But let's talk specifically about the offense, Sean, because I talked about this, and you could start to even see it on that first drive. You see Riley Leonard come out. He hits a comeback route. It was a backside read on drive one, hits a comeback route. Next pass, he throws a backside dig cut. Again, not his primary read. Bo Collins drops it. Then he hits another comeback on 3rd and 2 to Bo Collins for a first down. Next play, he goes off and runs for 19 yards, gets Notre Dame into Stanford territory, comes back with a hold, and then obviously that stagnated the drive. But you could see, like, okay, Riley's looks like he's feeling a little bit in this game. But you saw Mike Denbrock come out and say, we have to get 13 going in this game. Yeah. And you also said, okay, listen, they're a really strong running team. They're not a very good throwing team. Let's take it to them. And we'll get into some specifics in a second, Sean, but that's something that I was very happy about, is that they didn't do the whole let's come out and be methodical and let's come out and, feel them out and all that stuff that we've heard Marcus Freeman say. They came out with an aggressive game plan, in my opinion, a very aggressive game plan, and it allowed them to roll. And once the pass game got going, then that opened up some opportunities in the run game for Notre Dame. And they finished the game with a really strong all-around performance in which they passed for 248 yards as a team, rushed for 229 yards as a team, and Riley Leonard did a little bit as a runner, but it was mostly some scrambles in the touchdown run where he didn't get touched. They didn't need Riley Leonard's legs in this game. They won with Riley Leonard's arm. But I felt like it was the first thing I want to talk about what we saw from Mike Denbrock was coming out early with a clear objective of we've got to get the pass game going. And honestly, it did. And you saw when he starts hitting passes and you've got to start dropping guys into cover, and all of a sudden those scramble lanes started opening up for Riley Leonard, man. So I thought that was an important part coming out of this game. It was very obvious that getting 13 going was important, and not doing it with easy single reads, sprint them out a bunch of times because you're afraid he can't complete a pass. They had it working, and it looked like Mike Denbrock is starting to get a feel for what Riley Leonard's actually good at and what he's comfortable with, and he called to that today. And we saw sort of honestly a vintage Riley Leonard performance with 229 passing yards, 16 of 22 completions to attempts, 73% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, and only played 3 quarters of football. He was on pace for almost 300 yards in this game. And it's like, okay, that's the sign of a coordinator and a quarterback that are starting to figure it out together, Sean, just schematically. And Riley Leonard looked as comfortable as he's been in a Notre Dame uniform.
And that's why patience is a virtue, and most fans lack it, right? Because when you think about it, it's the perfect marriage. Things should immediately hit the ground running offensively with Mike Denbrock and a talent like Riley Leonard. But like you said, because of the injury, the lack of time in the spring, then the quarterback battle in the fall, there was really not a lot of time to really fashion things around Riley Leonard, and you had to do it on the fly, starting in College Station against that defense and Mike Elko, which is like the worst place. So now you're really just trying to win games. Like, we just want to win games as we formulate this offense around our quarterback. And then you saw it start to come together against Louisville. They get the bye week, and you have to give Mike Denbrock great credit, because he talked about it this week when he met with the media. He said, we finally had a chance to really self-examine ourselves, and now we can start going against the trend and stop giving teams things they can lock in on and zero in on the film. And now we can start to counter teams and take what they're doing against us to go against them, and it starts with Stanford. He said that. That's exactly what we saw schematically from Notre Dame starting off in the game, going to the passing game and having big-time opportunities they had. They just missed it. They missed a couple of opportunities, the drop, the overthrow of Great House, but they stayed with it. They came back, and eventually they got to their identity, which is playing off that run game. But like starting off the game, the first touchdown drive, absolutely amazing things from the players and the coaching staff, the way they approach this Stanford defense.
Couple things I liked about the game plan too, Sean, is, kind of going through my play-by-play breakdown here. Came out first drive. We saw a lot of 11 personnel throwing the ball, spread it out.
Yeah.
The other thing is we saw early was tempo. Not like lights on fire, hair on fire tempo, but we saw Notre Dame play with some urgency. And when the offense calls for you to play with urgency just from a snap-to-snap basis, you're going to see a little bit more urgency from how they play the game. And we saw that a little bit from the receivers. Now, there were some focus issues at times. You had the drop and the fumble by Bo Collins, but he rebounds and makes a big play. So I thought that was important too, because what that did, Sean, is that had Stanford on their heels defensively, and Stanford couldn't do a bunch of that moving around and a lot of the pre-snap and post-snap things that they like to do. That got them on their heels, which allowed Notre Dame to then go at them. So I thought coming out with some pace, I don't know if I'd say tempo. I'd say they played with some pace. Because when you think tempo, you think hurry up. And I don't think they were in hurry up. I think they were playing with really good pace. And let's get lined up. Let's get in set. They were doing some shifts and some motions that I thought were effective in this game. Not quite as much motioning as I would like to see. But I've always said this to you, Sean. You got to do one of two things on offense. One is you go with, if you're not going to motion and move around a lot, you got to go with some pace. You got to play with some tempo. They did that. But then when they slowed it down a little bit, we did see some motioning and shifting. We saw on that one the touchdown run by, I think it was the one to Jeremiah Love. It might have been the one to Jadarian Price, but they started with, it was 12 personnel. They they shift both tight ends over, quickly bring Mitchell Evans back across and run, and they had Stanford completely out leveraged.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I want to see from this team. We didn't see a lot of like quick pitch stuff outside, but we saw them run that G scheme to get off tackle with a bounce. That's what we're talking about. You just can't run inside zone quarterback counter right at them all day. They had some stuff that kept Stanford off. But here's another big key to this game, Sean, that I thought was impactful. We'll talk about some of the other pass game stuff here in a little bit. But we saw the most RPO package that we've seen under Mike Denbrock in this game. Mm-hmm. We saw 3 glance routes get completed. That was on the second drive. He hit a little 12-yarder to Chris Mitchell, where he just fits that ball in there. You can see him. He's right. He's looking right at the linebacker. As soon as the linebacker freezes, he pulls it and throws it behind him. The touchdown pass to Jaden Thomas was a RPO throw where he's reading it. It's a glance route. Jaden does a great job winning on that route, beats him. Then the touchdown pass to Chris Mitchell, also an RPO. The long game that Bo Collins had where he actually fumbled the ball was an RPO where Riley pulled it, threw with conviction, got him the ball quickly. Bo wasn't able to make people miss. And if he doesn't get stripped, and part of that was a great play by the Stanford defender. Bo's got to hang on to that football, though. that was a way to attack teams from coming down at you. Is fine. You want to come hard at us, we're going to pull it and throw it. Now, he did have the one mistake, but that one mistake, great awareness by Pat Coogan, catches the ball and runs for 11 yards.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you know things are going your way when your center catches a pass, a tipped pass, and runs for 11 yards. But the RPO game was incredibly impactful, Sean, because they were actually kind of stuffing the run early in the game because they were flying downhill. But once Notre Dame hit a couple of those RPOs and Stanford started to kind of, okay, can't come down as hard anymore, then all of a sudden the run game starts going off. JD gets a long run. Jeremiah Love gets a long run, and they break the game open. So I thought that was a great – I was so fired up to see how much they were using RPO in this game, Sean. You would have liked to have seen it a lot earlier, but I kind of understand it. When your quarterback's not reading things very well, you can't do RPOs a whole lot because that gets you in a lot of trouble. All the RPOs are like perimeter RPOs. There was nothing like the glance routes over the middle. That more than anything told me that Mike Denbrock saw something from Riley Leonard during the break, and it backs up what I told you before the game. I had heard from a source that Riley had a really good 2 weeks of practice.
Yeah.
And I think that gave Mike Denbrock more confidence to go into this game and say, hey, he's figuring it out. He's feeling it. Let's give him a little bit more in that decision-making standpoint. And Riley rewarded him with a heck of a performance in this game.
And we saw a lot of that from our limited time in media. We saw a lot of tempo early in camp, and we expected that. And we were shocked that we didn't see more of it early in the first 5 games. And so you talk about that tempo and how it affects things. I liken it to having your quarterback be a point guard in basketball, and your point guard is responsible for the tempo. No matter makes or misses on the defensive end, we're pushing the ball. And that's what it allowed Notre Dame's offense to get into. It didn't matter whether or not they had a good play or a bad play. We're playing at this pace. And we're going to play at a pace that's going to make our quarterback the playmaker, no matter what he does, and gets him into a rhythm. It's not always about making the play as a quarterback. It's just about creating that energy. I think energy is a good word. They created a different energy today offensively, and everybody was able to feed off it, especially Riley Leonard. So you love seeing that. Great preparation, great answers to the questions from the coaching staff and the players. Do the preparation over the bye week. And then Marcus Freeman says this a lot. I know if you guys actually played a drinking game and you heard him say execution, you all would be drunk halfway through his
I'm good with that. I'm good with that, Sean.
Absolutely. But, you saw execution today. You saw better execution from this offense, and you have to love that going into the next game.
I also like, Sean, from the offense, I thought it was a very aggressive game plan as well.
Yeah.
And again, sometimes deep balls aren't going to hit. You had the pass from Jaden Greathouse. I thought Jaden properly bent that seam inside. Riley did not throw it where it should have been. He threw it straight up the seam instead of leading Jaden slightly inside. He didn't want to lead him too much because then that backside safety, but it does need to be on more of an inside line. I thought the throw to Bo Collins was placed well. He just threw it late. That ball's got to come out sooner. But you saw a quarterback throwing with a little bit more conviction down the field. And then, of course, you come back later and he ends up hitting Bo Collins on a post route. I love that play call, running an inside post from the slot. We haven't seen that a whole lot from them this year. I was happy to see that. And then Riley made one of the best throws he's made on that outside post corner route, far hash outside corner route to KK Smith in the third quarter. So we saw a very effective vertical game from Notre Dame in this game, even though they didn't start that way. With a couple misses, they kept at it. And the combination of being willing to attack down the field with the RPO game really left Stanford with, I don't know really what else we can do. And, coming into the game, Sean, Stanford was giving up 188 yards a game rushing. The most they had allowed all year was 150 to Clemson and 5.0 yards per carry. Nobody else even got to 4, I don't think, yards per carry against them this season. And Notre Dame went out and ran for 229 on them in this game, 5.9 yards per carry.
Yeah.
And, that was an impressive performance because how do you get your run game going sometimes? This is what was so frustrating in the past. Is like they were just forced the run game. Like, we got to be able to run the ball. Mike Denbrock said, yeah, we got to be able to run the football. But if we want to be able to run the football, we got to soften them up. How do we soften them up? Throw it over top, RPO game, get to the perimeter, use some tempo. And that softened them up. And once they did that, Second quarter, third quarter, they started now leaning on him, and next thing you know, your big playmakers are out there making plays.
And I like the way they get the ball out of his hand quick, right? That makes him even more comfortable when he has to scan the field. What you saw today, you saw quicker feet, more confident feet, and better scans. He wasn't stuck on receivers. He got to his second, third read a lot quicker. And like you said, hitting Bo Collins on the backside, which is like his second, third read, even though Bo Collins dropped that, you put that in the bank and say, okay, our quarterback is locked in. If we can keep him right there moving forward, we're going to be good because we don't expect Bo to drop most of those or many of those moving forward. So I'm telling you, regardless of the competition, ladies and gentlemen, you pull a lot from this game offensively because there's a lot more in the bank. I believe Mike Denbrock at some point said, okay, now we can just line up. We have them off balance. Now we can line up and run the ball. And that's exactly what he did. Once he got them uncomfortable from their game plan and what they wanted to do, and they stopped coming downhill as aggressively, then he said, okay, now we have them exactly where we want them. Let's get to this diversity in the running game and really confuse them. And then they start busting big plays in the run game. It was perfect. It was perfect.
And we saw some well-designed screen game in the game also.
Yes.
The now screen early to Chris Mitchell that went for 10 yards. I loved the play call to Jeremiah Love on his screenplay. And again, it's like that wasn't necessarily perfectly blocked. It doesn't have to be. That's the whole point. Jeremiah Love made two guys miss. That's the point. Yeah. When you get playmakers like this, you can't block everyone. At some point in time, you got to say, bro, we're going to get you in space. You got one guy to beat. It's up to you to beat him. And he did. I thought that was great. And I'll tell you something else, Sean, about this game too is if this can – see, here's the thing. We've seen some things where Notre Dame came out and did stuff like this in the past, and then they just – the next game they'd kind of come out and be a little – if this is sort of the beginning of something, this offense is going to be a lot more fun to watch. And I had somebody tell me that, you know who I talked to, and he said basically if we throw it on Saturday like we threw it during the week, it's going to be a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. And we saw that today. And you know, I like the fact that right there, Bo made 3 big mistakes in this game, Sean. You had to fumble, you had to drop, and then there was another play. Did you see the play out to the left where Riley threw it like 5 feet in front of Bo? Yeah. That was intentional. So he threw it into the ground. You could tell it. And then he goes right to Bo and he's correcting him. He had made some sort of route mistake. Right. And then they pulled Bo out. And you know what I liked about Bo Collins? Didn't put his head down. He's like, hey, I got you. And he goes back out and makes a big play. He's blocking well. And like, that's the thing that you want to see. Like, guys are going to mess up. They're going to drop balls. And it's not okay. It's not acceptable. Yeah. But it's like, okay, fix it. And then I'm coming right back at you. I think as a former quarterback and receivers coach, when you screw up as a receiver and your quarterback comes back to you, that is something that can completely change a relationship between a pass catcher and a quarterback. And next time he's like, hey, I'm going to go out there and make sure I'm running this route right because he showed faith in me. I need to make sure I get right by him. And I'm hoping that can be the case when you look at this with Bo Collins and Riley Leonard.
That's a great point because early in the season, we saw things like that, and then we saw no communication between the two. Riley would have his head down, not confident. Bo just, man, his body language, he'd be like, come on, man. Now you see these guys synced in, and you see once again, your quarterback has to be a source of confidence for your football team. So when you see Riley playing at this confident level, and immediately going to the wide receiver saying, hey, this is what I saw. This is why I threw it that way. You made a mistake. I need you to do this. He's confident because you have to be confident in yourself to go tell that wide receiver, hey, you made a mistake. Next time, do this. But come back to him, right? Yep. And Bo knew, I got you. And he felt like you're going to come back to me. I'm going to be able to make a play. I'm not going to drop the ball like I did last time. Yep. And that's exactly what you got. So it goes back to, once again, what I wanted to see from Riley Leonard more than anything. Forget stats. I wanted to see a kid playing with confidence. And if he can play with confidence, they're going to be a problem for teams. Yeah. Collectively.
Something else I saw today from Mike Denbrock and Dylan McCullough that I liked. You know who had the first carry of the game for Notre Dame? What running back had the first carry on the game today? Jadarian Price. Yeah. That we talked about this. They did that 2 years ago when they benched Audric against Stanford. Or was it UNLV? And he fumbled the ball, lost a fumble. It was the second week in a row he had lost a fumble. He'd lost one against Stanford the week before.
Played against Stanford,
Yep.
and then you're
Yep.
right.
And then they benched him. They benched him. He didn't play the rest of the game. Logan Dix had to carry the ball like 28 times in that game, right?
Yeah.
First, I think it was first play of the game, might have been, where they lined up and they put Audric at fullback and just handed the ball twice. They said, hey, man, we punished you last week because you did something that you just can't do. We have a rule. You can't do it. And then they come back in this game, and the first guy to touch the ball is Jadarian Price. And he was immediately part of the game plan. That's true accountability. But in doing it in a way where you're building your player, hey, look, you can't do this. You know the rule. Go sit. But, bro, keep working because we're going to come back to you. And you obviously saw Jadarian come out and play pretty good football. I thought he was more patient today. I thought he was confident. He didn't look shook. He didn't look bothered by it. This was the most gritty game that Jadarian had. He didn't have that one long run. He had the touchdown run was a great read, great blocking by the offensive line. He read it perfectly, but you saw an improved Jadarian Price today as well. And I'm sure Jeremiah Love would have liked more touches, but they needed this for the big picture long term, was to make sure Jadarian didn't go in the tank after the fumble last week. Yeah. I thought that was smart game planning by Mike Denbrock and Dylan McCullough as well, because you're going to need both of those kids at some point in time this season. And I thought that was a great way. Hold them accountable for that. That's the rule you have, but make sure we're building the kid back up, not just completely tearing him down. And I thought Jadarian rewarded him with a good game. But that also sends a message to the entire team. Hey, there's a standard that you got to live by, but we're not throwing you under the bus and you're done like we maybe saw in the past. Make the mistake. If you go out and work that next week and your attitude is right, don't worry. We're not going to lose faith in you. And we saw that with Jadarian from game to game. We saw that with Bo Collins in game. Notre Dame's coaches would have been 100% justified saying, hey, Bo, this ain't your day. Take a seat. Right? They would have been 100% justified. He had a drop for a big play. He ran a wrong route that cost him a play. He had a fumble that gave Stanford the ball at midfield. They would have been absolutely in their rights as coaches to say, man, Jaden Thomas, you're playing great today. Get in there, Bo, go sit. They kept coming back to him. So you saw him getting chewed out on the sideline when he wasn't making plays, but now go back out there and make a play because we need you. And that's what he did. So that was something to me too, Sean, that I very much appreciated by what we saw from this football staff and this football team today was, yeah, we're not just going to accept those type of plays, but there's different ways to hold a guy accountable, right? And it's not always sit a guy. It's not always not sit a guy. You have to take it case by case and position by position. So I was very pleased with what I saw. And then you see KK Smith getting involved in the game. That was huge. Jaden Thomas keeps doing Jaden Thomas things. I mean, that kid, he doesn't get the ball.
Talk about a kid that could complain.
Oh, yes.
And have bad body language.
Yes.
No.
Great body language.
Quality kid. I saw some great selflessness today.
Yeah.
Riley Leonard's touchdown run. You see Jeremiah Love with the lead block, walking up, tapping his head, chest bumping with each other. And then you talk about everything that you saw magnified by this stat. 7 different players scored touchdowns today. Yeah. That's incredible. To put up that many points and not have it based upon one guy or two guys dominating like we see across the landscape of college football, to have 7 different players punching into the end zone is absolutely great, unselfish football and great game planning and play calling by Mike Denver.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I thought there was obviously also a very clear desire to get Chris Mitchell involved early.
Yeah.
Which I thought was important. Again, another player that the staff would be within there, right? And I mean, I'm trying to think of the right way to say it, Sean, but like they would have been justified in saying, hey, Chris, man, you're giving us nothing. Like we're going to give some young guy a chance. But they came out in this game and we got to get 10 involved, because if we're going to be the team we're capable of being this year, we need 10 to help us. And, you got him involved early. I think his first catch, Sean, was that now screen on drive 2. They got him the ball again on that RPO glance on that same drive for a first down, which led to end up Notre Dame getting a touchdown on that particular drive. They threw him RPO out cut that Riley just missed it. I mean, it's just not a good throw by Riley. But that was another chance where they were getting him the ball. And then, of course, he has the touchdown catch. I think some of these things, like, okay, his numbers aren't going to knock your socks off. He had 4 catches for 32 yards. But these are confidence-building type games, in my opinion, for a guy like Chris Mitchell. He got 5 targets today. Caught 4 of them, got involved. And you saw a lot of guys on this football team come out in this game, Sean, and say, hey, listen, like, we're going to count on you. We're going to count on you. We're going to count – Riley was spreading the ball around. That more than anything is the sign of a quarterback that's confident in the offense, is when the ball is getting spread around. I'm not going to give him credit for 9 different guys catching the ball, because he didn't mean to throw the ball to Pat Coogan, okay? But 8 different guys caught a pass for Riley Leonard. And like, they ended up having, I think, 10 guys, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 guys caught passes. Aeneas caught a pass from Steve Angeli. Deion Colsey caught a pass from Steve Angeli. And then you had the Pat Coogan play. And then 8 other players caught a pass from Riley Leonard. A quarterback is feeling good about what's being called when you're seeing the ball spread around, because he's not locking in on a guy. But I also thought there was some intentionality in how Mike Denbrock called this game. Say, let's get 10 the ball. Let's get 4 the ball. Let's get 5 the ball early. I thought all those things were a part of this that made this game plan impactful for me, Sean. Obviously, great scheme, tempo, mixing up motion shifts. I'm going to break some stuff down in the run game that I loved from this game with some of the motions and shifts. But I just really liked the variety, the multiplicity we saw. And it wasn't super complex stuff, but it was enough. You're attacking you attacked horizontally today. You attacked vertically today. You attacked with quick stuff to the perimeter, and you also still ran right at them. And that's okay. That's what we need to see more and more of from this Notre Dame offense, Sean, is we're going to attack you with tempo. We're going to attack you with spreading the field out. We're going to run at you. We're going to motion. We're going to shift, and we're going to spread the ball around. And boy, that was a much needed thing to see from this offense. And again, 42 points by the end of the third quarter. This is the second time this season that Notre Dame has scored more than 40 points before getting into the fourth quarter on offense. And they scored 49 on offense? No, 45 on offense against Purdue. Right?
Yeah.
Because they had a defensive touchdown as well in that game. But a quarterback's feeling good, Sean, when you see that kind of stuff.
Let me tell you something. It reminds me, as a Bulls fan back in the day, with Scottie Pippen, Tony Kukoc, and Michael Jordan. You know who they ran the first 2 offensive plays for? Every game. Bill Cartwright. It's like, we're going to get him, because if we give him the ball, he's going to play better defense. He's going to screen harder. And this is what you're talking about. You get those guys involved in the game, they're going to work even harder and get into a luster and get into that selfless football that you want from this team. And that's what you love. Identifying, look, these guys, Brian, we talked about this, man. Yes, I believe someone asked Mike Denbrock about it, like, flat out, like, Chris Mitchell comes over here. He put up over 1,000 yards last year. Like, what's his attitude right now? And Mike Denbrock was like, yo, he's a team first player. Like, he's locked in. And like you said, just as much as the coaches could have benched him, he could have gone into the tank personally. But he didn't. And that says a lot about the character of the young men within this program, right? We can sit here, we see a lot of people leaving teams, transferring, and Notre Dame has had some people jump in the portal. But even though the majority of these players are locked into what it means to be a player for the University of Notre Dame, right? And we had a great conversation about culture. Today was a culture win. Louisville was a culture win, right? And so we see if they can continue to build upon that. Marcus Freeman said it coming out of halftime. I'm sick and tired of being a good team. I'm ready to be a great team.
We haven't seen a lot of those culture wins, Sean, stacked together.
Yeah.
And and I'm gonna have to go back and look and see if that's what we're trying to think about. Have we seen multiple of those in the past? But last thing on offense, Sean, and I'll talk more about this later when we break down the film. But I did get a chance to watch a decent amount of the offensive line today. Obviously, Anthony Knapp and pass pro is a concern. Gave up the holding penalty bothered me because it's like, why? Riley's out of the pocket. Like
Mhm.
once he's out of the pocket, let him go. I mean, who cares if you don't? He's gone, and that was just unnecessary. It was a panic move by a young kid that got beat, and then he gives up a sack, just a bad sack, and he didn't give up any other sacks. And I actually thought overall they gave Riley Leonard good time to throw today. But again, as we talked about, this is a team that's not very good at rushing the quarterback in Stanford. So I think some of that is I'm not feeling completely comfortable with the pass pro moving forward, because again, it's like, okay, against a group of edge players, I don't know that play is going to, will they have as much time if this stuff doesn't get cleaned up? But
one quick thing, let me ask you a question. If you were talking to Anthony Knapp, what is one thing is there any one thing you would tell him? Like, look, we understand where you are. Don't get beat here. Don't get beat there. Is there anything he can lock into to say, look, as you grow, make sure you lock in and do these one or two things in pass pro, and you should be okay. Now,
besides moving him back to center guard, I mean,
I knew that was coming.
No, but the thing is, it's not his fault. He's being put in a position that he should not be put into.
You're right.
Right. So this isn't an anti-Anthony Knapp thing for me. It is this is who he's going to be. He's not this is why you recruited him to play guard and center in your offense.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. And so it really is going to come down to he's going to have to but to answer your question, because there's coaching points you can give. I think he struggles with how the angles and the tempo of getting out of a stance. Sometimes he oversets and gets beat inside. Sometimes he undersets and they just run right by him to the outside. And I don't think he's comfortable in space, Sean. That's really what it comes down
to. That's
to.
not good as a left tackle.
You got to figure out a way to get him somewhat comfortable there. And I just don't know that that's going to happen, because I just don't think he's that kind of player. Yeah. I mean, again, there's a reason you put him there. And I struggle to think that as a pass blocker, this is the best you have. I've seen Tosh Baker play better games in pass pro. I watched him in a bowl game play better in pass pro than what we've seen from Anthony Knapp. Having said that, okay, that's the negative. That's got to get better. Overall, I thought pass pro was much improved after the first couple series.
Yeah.
For the most part, it was a lot better.
Yeah.
But, Sean, I thought this was a very physical game from this offensive line. I thought Rocco Spindler really struggled against Louisville. He came out and played a little pissed off in this game. I thought Sam Pendleton looked more like the guy we saw the first couple, the A&M game, right? The Purdue game where he was coming off and just bullying people. Like I'm looking at my notes from the game, Sean, and I'm getting to some of the run plays, and I'm like, on the first 3rd and 1, they had just a 4-yard inside zone. Jadarian just ran right behind the right side of the line. I mean, Rocco and Emil just bullied Stanford off the line, and Jadarian just gets right behind it to move the chains, right? I'm going down over here, and I'm like, 50-59, dominant blocks, 72 and 54, great push. Go watch the quarterback counter touchdown that Riley Leonard had. He runs right behind Anthony Knapp and Sam Pendleton.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like, I got some issues with Joe Rudolph. I do. But one of the things that we said was one of the issues we had last year, the offensive line, is they were just not a physical team. They were just not a physical. They'd have a game here, game there. Ohio State, they were pretty. But overall, they were just not a physical line. They didn't really move people off the ball. That's something you have to look back on this team and say all year. Even against Louisville last week, Louisville beat them in the second, kind of starting the second quarter and the second half. I thought Louisville kind of won that battle against the Notre Dame offensive line, but it was a 4-quarter fight. They never stopped fighting. Rocco didn't play well in that last game, but he played hard. Pat Coogan didn't play necessarily really well. I thought they played well in the first quarter, but then, they kind of figured it out. And I didn't think they played well. They played hard. In this game, they played hard and they played well. They were getting, like, Rocco was kind of getting his pads down a little bit, getting under guys. He wasn't standing up as much, getting a push. They had a great backside. Him and Emil had a great backside push on one of the long runs to the left. I thought Pat Coogan might have had his best game as a Notre Dame player. Take the catch out of it. That's great awareness and great hustle. I loved it. Gave the first down signal. Awesome. But just grading his blocking, this is just on watching it live, probably the best game he had. I saw Pat Coogan get more movement at the snap or off the snap in this game than I've ever seen him get. Now, again, he still falls down too much, which is kind of the problem with Pat, because he doesn't have great balance. So he just tends to get a push and then kind of fall. but he was getting that push first. And the thing I love about Anthony Knapp, Sean, like, look, the kid's not a left tackle, right? Like, he's just not a left tackle. That kid's going to be a really good football player at Notre Dame someday, because the one thing he does well
is run block.
Yes. And he doesn't let his struggles in, because this is important, Sean, he's probably 18 years old?
Yeah.
19 at the most. For an 18-year-old kid to have that many issues in pass pro, like, coming into this game, according to Pro Football Focus, the two starting offensive tackles had already allowed more pressures than what Joe Walt and Blake Fisher allowed all of last season. They did that in 5 games. There's some things that got to get shored up, right? But he hasn't really let that affect him as a run blocker. That shows me a level of maturity and confidence that you need. And I'll give Joe Rudolph credit. We're going to have a long talk about Joe Rudolph when the season is over if things don't get better in pass pro, because, yeah, it didn't hurt you today against a team that ranked 97th in the country in sacks coming into the game. But you got to be honest about how does it project against Georgia Tech next week, who's got a better D-line. How's it going to project if Patrick Payton and those guys and Marvin Jones has said, hey, this is a money game for me. We suck. We're terrible, but I put a Notre Dame game on film. I'm going to make me some money in the NFL draft. USC at the end of the year, better pass rushers are going to take advantage of from what we saw today. But the kid fights, man. I mean, it's not a lack of toughness. It's not a lack of effort. It's not a lack of try hard. And I thought they played more sound today. I thought the double teams stayed together and really got a push today. They didn't always pick up the twists well, but they were a little better. I thought today there still needs some work there. But they went against a pretty good run defense and pushed them around, Sean. They were then helped by a really well-called game helped them. Where last week it was just like inside run. You're not helping them. Today I thought the game plan and the play calling helped them, and they were able to push this team around. And I thought that was an important.
And that's where numbers can be misleading, right? Because their secondary, of course, ravaged by injuries. Their entire team has been ravaged by injuries, and they just don't have the depth. But you talk about that. You can be misled by numbers because teams go after their secondary. That's how teams attack the Stanford team, right? So they don't have a team like Notre Dame that can set this up and then just get physical and come at them and go above what they give up. I think they went, 120 midway through the third quarter on the ground, and that was without really doing damage. And then they came in with their backups and added to that. So I think they were averaging close to 200 on the season on the ground.
Who, Notre Dame?
Yeah.
214 coming into the game.
214 coming to the game. Yep. Where'd they end up at the end of the game, B?
229, I think is what they were. 229.
There you go. Against a team that by the numbers was a good team.
No, and it's not even by the numbers. I mean, you watch the film. They've played Clemson, who rushes for 200 a game. And they held them to 150. They played Virginia Tech, who's got a pretty decent run game. They shut them down, and they were earning their 88 yards per game. Like I said, Clemson was the most they'd given up, and they had 150 and averaged 5 yards a carry. And if you looked at this is the thing that I pointed out last week, Sean, is if you actually look at what Clemson did on the ground. So as I said, they had 150 yards and 5.0 yards per play against Stanford. The 2 games before against App State and NC State, they ran for 252 and 269, 7.4 yards per carry, 8.2 yards per carry. The week after against Florida State, they ran for 265 and averaged 6.6 yards per carry. So again, you got in context, yeah, you gave up 150 yards, but that was a pretty darn good performance against a team that runs the ball really well. And I'm going to go look and see what Clemson did today. They went for 223 against Wake. So it's 260, 250, 240, 220, and then right in the middle, 150.
So are you talking about what they gave up defensively?
What Stanford gave up on the ground. So I'm talking about what Clemson's offense has done outside of the
Stanford game. I got you.
Right? Is they've gone for minimum 220 something in every game. In the 2 before, the 2 after, they've gone for 220 plus, 6 yards per carry plus. And against Stanford, 150 and 5 yards a carry. And they rank 88th in the country in rushing defense, Sean, coming into this game, but they only ranked 97th in sacks and like 117th in tackles for loss. So it's not like they're creating a lot of negatives that bring that down. And they ranked 12th in rushing yards allowed. But you can say, well, they also had a terrible pass defense. But they ranked 26th in fewest yards allowed per carry. That's a more reflective number of where their defense is. Not 12th, in my opinion. 25th, 20. That's still a pretty good run defense, Sean. For a team that's played, I think, 4 Power 5 games already this season.
No. That's my point was, I don't think teams have really tried to just hammer them. I think they saw we can attack their secondary immediately, right? I think Notre Dame went after their secondary early, but I think Notre Dame was trying to set up to just push them around. I think Notre Dame did everything they did schematically early to get them on their heels so they can get away from their tendency of coming straight downhill in the running game and playing to their strength defensively. And once Notre Dame was able to do that, then Notre Dame lined up and said, okay, now we know we can come in because you can't do anything against us. And so that a team actually had a game plan to get to, we're going to push you around. And when they saw that they had them, there was no pushback. There was no pushback physically and talent-wise that Stanford had to go to. Schematically, this is what we do to stop the run. And once the team took us out of that, like Notre Dame did with Mike Denbrock early, there was no pushback. Like the backups came in and they were able to do what they wanted to do in the run game. So that is what, that's what I meant about the numbers being misleading, because I don't think a team really schematically did what Notre Dame wanted to do for a reason.
For a reason, right?
Absolutely.
Last thing for me, Sean, when you look at the offense is third down has been a problem for Notre Dame this year as well. And that was a key part to the fast start in this game. Notre Dame ended the game 6 of 11 on third down. They were 4 of 6 in the first half, which was important. And you look at that first touchdown drive, Sean, that Notre Dame had. They converted a 3rd and 1 where they just pushed them off the field. The second third down was a 3rd and 2. They threw the ball. Riley found Jaden Greathouse over the middle for a first down. Really good route by Jaden Greathouse. Made the right read. They had a 3rd and 7 where Anthony Knapp got beat badly. That was his second bad pass, third bad pass rush of the game. He settled in a little bit after that. But Riley makes a guy miss. And this is what we talked about. This is why you have 13 at quarterback, even if the pass game's not going, because plays like that are sacks if anybody else on the roster is playing quarterback. Makes the guy miss, ends up running for 18 yards and move the chain. So they were really good on third down in this game, Sean, and it was important. They need to get better on third down. Now, Stanford's not a very good third down defense, so that needs some context. But you did what you're supposed to do when you're an offense is against a team that's not good on third down. You're not good on third down either. You said, okay, but we're going to get right this game. And I wrote an article, Sean, that this is, and we had a show early in the week, this is a get-right opportunity for Notre Dame offense. And they got right in this game. Now it's about build on it, right? It doesn't guarantee that you're going to continue, but now it's about build on it. And they needed that in this game. Certainly needed that in this game.
No one feels better than offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock tonight. I can tell you that. No one feels better than him. I think finding his niche with his quarterback, having a confident team moving forward into the next matchup with Georgia Tech, and then having more left in the tank. I think he has tricks up his sleeve. I think it's still things he hasn't gotten to yet that he's definitely going to feel comfortable with going into Georgia Tech and the rest of the schedule right here in the middle part of the schedule for the Fight Night. So I think he feels really good about this. Yeah. And I think he's excited and chomping at the bit to get to the next one. All right, cool. Yeah. I'm ready to get to the next game because I feel like, we're locked in. We can build off of this. And like you said, this offense might even look better. Better competition next week. And this offense still might look even better because there's room to grow from an execution standpoint.
That's going to do it for the offensive breakdown, Sean. We're going to get to the defense next. But before we do, folks, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, share this pod, give us a 5-star review. We'd greatly appreciate that. And, of course, as always, make sure you sign up for the message board at boards.irishbreakdown.com. So let's talk about the Notre Dame defense, Sean. And I would say if I could be excited about anything coming out of this game, say you can pick one thing that you're most excited about, what would it be? It would be that the Notre Dame defense struggled early again, and the offense picked them up again. Now, Al Golden's not going to be happy that his team struggled early. The leaders on the Notre Dame defense are not going to be happy that they struggled early. But for the second straight game, the Notre Dame defense started off slow, and the offense said, don't worry, we got you. That is huge for this football team, because you could see some last year at times, Sean, the pressure of the offensive struggles in big games hurt them, the defense. And now you're 2 games in a row where you've come out and said, hey, listen, defensively, you're scuffling a little bit. Offense is going to pick you up. Now, again, offense wasn't perfect, but they picked them up. And that was important, Sean. It was very important for them to come out and see that. And that because here's why. Number one, it gives you confidence in your other unit. Hey, we're going to be okay. We don't have to play with this super, super pressure of, gee, we can't give up scores or we're going to be in trouble. But it also gives you time to make adjustments. And that's really what we saw in this game is, we talked about in our keys to victory game, the second key was play smart, because Troy Taylor's a really good football coach. And he's going to do a whole bunch of stuff that's going to kind of get you looking this way and looking that way. And we're not sure what we're going to do here. What do we do there? You got to play smart football. And early on, I thought that they were struggling to kind of pick up the looks that Stanford was going. I mean, there was a time they ran a jet sweep and the 2 inside linebackers are both kind of still looking like, I'm not sure where to go. And they get outside and they get a decent chunk. There was a couple plays where I thought they were late to close on some plays. They didn't tackle very well early in the game. I thought, the one long 27-yard scramble, Adon Schuler kind of comes in a little bit out of control, misses the quarterback. You had Christian Gray, had a missed tackle early in the game. And they just weren't sharp early on, but they buckled down in a hurry. And like well-coached teams do, they made adjustments. And they ended up turning what Stanford does that works them into a detriment to Stanford in the second and then especially in the third quarter, where they said, here's how we're going to attack. You want to do this speed option stuff? You want to do all this? That's fine. Here's how we're going to play it. And it forced Stanford into some big mistakes. And I thought schematically they did some great adjustments. And I'll tell you, one of the big plays of the game was that 4th down where they stopped them on 4th down on the second drive. And we'll talk about the individual players, but I loved that call by Al Golden. So they come out and Alec Ayomanor's in the boundary. They put Benjamin Morrison's on him. And I talked before the game. I said, I'm curious if they're going to find ways to try to get him away from Benjamin Morrison. And they did for most of the first half. But on that 4th and 5, he was matched up against Benjamin. Benjamin aggressively was taking away the outside. And when Stanford sees that a lot, that press, teams are going to run slants at Benjamin. Notre Dame baited them into a slant route there. Benjamin was aggressive with it. He didn't let him get into it. And then they dropped Jack Kaiser right in that window where if he runs an out, Benjamin's got him. If he runs an in or a slant, Jack's dropping right underneath it. That's why the kid held the football. So, yes, Benjamin and Jack did their job, but it was a great play call, Sean, where we know where you're going with the football on 4th and 5. You're throwing to 13. And so we're going to make you think it's our best dude against your best dude, mano a mano. And it kind of was, because Benjamin had to play him well, but they then dropped Kaiser into that window. I thought that was a great play call. That changed the game. It was over. If you look back at it, that moment on, it was a domination of that game. And he had 2 catches for 17 yards up to that point in time. Mm-hmm. He did nothing after that. Nothing. I thought that moment changed the game, Sean, and it was a great play call, and it was executed brilliantly by not just them, but then for Howard Cross did a great, because they were trying to cut the defensive line so they could get the quick throw off. They wanted to get hands down. They went to cut Howard. He puts the guy right on the ground and then goes right to the quarterback. There was nowhere for the court. He had to throw it and get picked off, or he was getting sacked. That was such a great play call, but play calls can be great, but they don't always work if they're not executed. And you saw 3 veterans on that play do their jobs and completely shut that down. And that, from that moment on, that defense had a confidence, and they just overwhelmed Stanford from that moment on, Sean.
I think the defense matched what we saw offensively. We talked about the 8 guys with receptions, the 7 guys scoring touchdowns. You go to situational football, 3rd and 4th downs. you had at least 6 to 7 guys make plays. It wasn't the same guy. It was Howard Cross. And Riley Mills came up with a big play. Josh Burnham came up with a big play. Bryce Young came up with a big play. This is what you want to see from the talent on this team. You just talked about Kaiser and Morrison coming up with a big play that caused a 4th down stop. This is the level of talent. And we're talking about a team that's missing some top, like Botello and Traore aren't even playing. But this is the type of playmaking you get from the defensive line, from the linebackers and the secondary. I just want to point, I think a stat they said the highest rate of man-to-man is played by Notre Dame. Knowing you have that in your back pocket as a defensive coordinator, you're like cheating, right? It's like, you have a tail on the dealer in blackjack, or someone playing poker. I mean, it is really something to be able to come in and play man-to-man 58% of the time and confidently know there's only so much you can do. And you talked about it. When Troy Taylor lost that 4th down battle against Al Golden, you saw it on silent. He put his head down. That wasn't about the play. That was about the game. Because he knew, like, they're about to take control. Like, this was our opportunity to stay in this game. Now we have no shot to stay in this game. They're about to roll us because we really don't have anything to hold them off defensively, and I don't see us putting up against a lot of points offensively. Yep. And that's what happened in that moment. So when you say that's a big moment, it was really a turning point for Troy Taylor because now he couldn't do what he wanted to do offensively. In order for him to go at Notre Dame the way he felt like he needed to, the game had to be close. Once he had to start dropping back and throwing the ball more with Daniels, he knew his team was cooked. He knew it.
Sean, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the performance of the game, and here's a number for you, and I'm going to make sure that my math is correct. 200 minus 85 is 115, correct? Okay. On the first 19 plays of the game, so that's the first touchdown drive through that 4th and 5 play, Stanford had 85 yards on 19 plays, right, for 4.5 yards of play. They were moving the ball on Notre Dame. They were in a position where, we're in 2-down territory here, and they did some on 3rd down, went for it on 4th down. And that, as you want to talk about how it changed the game, right? I said that changed the game. That play changed the game. So at that point in time, 19 plays, 85 yards. Do you know what Stanford did the rest of the game? 115 yards on 40 plays. 2 drives, 85 yards on 19 plays. Rest of the game, 115 yards on 40 plays. Stanford finished this game with 200 total yards of offense on 3.4 yards per play. And they played their backups the entire 4th quarter. Like, that's a dominant, Sean, dominant performance. Even last week with their backup quarterback, they still had 258 yards on offense and went for 3.9 yards per play with their backup quarterback. So this was a heck of a performance for a team that gave up 85 yards on their first 2 drives. And that's why I said that ignited this football team. And I even think the play that really got them going was that first sack by Howard Cross. And I want to get into that, Sean, because, I mean, there's a lot we'll talk about here, guys stepping in, guys stepping up and all that kind of stuff. This team cannot be the team it's capable of being if Howard Cross and Riley Mills don't show up for the 2024 season. And we talked after the game against Louisville. I know you guys talked about it. I know we talked about it in our shows or upon further review and all that it was good to see Riley and Howard played well. They didn't play great, but they played well. And you say, boy, I hope that's the start of things to come. And they were dominant in this game. Howard had the sack. I mean, his first sack on 4th down, Howard got the sack, but if you go back and watch the play, it was Riley Mills and Bryce Young that drove the quarterback into Howard's hands. The second sack was all Howard. I mean, Jack and Benjamin did their thing, but I mean, as far as like winning, it was a great job keeping the guy off his legs. I thought Howard played with the motor that we have grown accustomed to seeing from Howard. I thought this was the most, I use this expression a lot. This is probably the most pissed off I've ever seen Riley Mills playing a football game. Did you see the play where I think the quarterback, it might have been the play. I think it was, he scrambled for a yard and Howard tackled him for a yard gain. Riley Mills comes off the line, blows past the guard. I mean, the guard's like falling back. Riley hit him so hard. The tight end comes to block him, and Riley just tosses him. He's like, I'm getting to the quarterback, and it's probably not a good idea for you to get in my way, right? And I know there's the anti-Riley Mills people out there, and I get that. And to a degree, some of that is deserved. He played really well last week, but this is what Riley Mills is capable of. This is why you get frustrated by the other games, because when he plays like this dude is a monster. And when those two kids, this is the duo that you look at and say, we expected this to be arguably the best interior duo in the country. We haven't seen it all year. Flashes of it against Louisville. This is what we expected to see, right? They're playing a line that's not that good, and they ate it up. No Jason Onye. He's got some things going on. Gabriel Rubio is back. That was great to see. This game was about 99-56. I mean, Stanford could do nothing up the middle against these guys. And then one of the plays they beat them on when those two were on the field, it was that backed up from their own end zone, Notre Dame slanted away from where the run was going. It just happened sometimes. It was just, we made a call, they had a good call against it, and they got a big play. It happens sometimes, right? It just, good call, Stanford. Outside of that, there was not a lot Stanford could do when those two kids were on the field together. It was yes, all the other, we'll talk about other things, Sean, but that was such an important part to this game, was seeing 56 and 99 playing like we thought they were going to play coming season. If that's the beginning of things to come, this defense is going to be, really good, because they were as good as they were with those two playing average football. When they play like this, there's not a lot of teams, Sean, that are going to be able to beat this Notre Dame football team.
They allow the linebackers to play even better. And if your linebackers start playing even better with the secondary you have, like you said, this defense can take another step forward and play even better. I think they're already a championship defense, but they can take it to another level. And that is amazing to say with the losses they've had defensively. To be able to say they still have an opportunity to take another step forward defensively and become better when you already feel like they're playing championship level defense, that is absolutely amazing, and the tip of the cap to the recruiting and the depth of this defensive side of the ball for Notre Dame. It truly is something to hang your hat on if you're a coaching staff and a head coach like Marcus Freeman, to come every week knowing Al Golden, defense, I can hang my hat on you guys. Now offense, let's get better and improve, and we can eventually become a great team.
You and I have a belief, Sean, in how we do our jobs, that it's never personal. If you do a bad job, we're going to criticize you for it. No matter what our personal feelings are, when you do a good job, we're going to praise you for it. There's a Notre Dame assistant coach on defense that has caught a lot of heat from us. And in the past, it's been deserved. But the job he's done this season, when you consider all the injuries, Al Washington is earning his bucks this season. This is a guy that hasn't had Gabriel Rubio all season. He gets Gabriel Rubio back for the game in which Jason Onye is not with the team for personal reasons. So it's like a trade. This guy's been playing really well. He's now out. We get this guy back who hasn't played all year. Jordan Patel, who's off to the best start of his career. Al Washington should get credit for that. So should Jordan. He goes down. True sophomore, redshirt freshman Boubacar Traore comes into the game. He's dominating. Boubacar deserves some credit for that. Al Washington deserves some credit for that. He goes down last week. You lose Josh Burnham, who was playing really good football in the second game of the year in that game. He goes down. He comes back. And you're going out to this game with a completely different looking defensive line than you've had all year, and they dominated after the first drive. I mean, you look, Josh Burnham deserves a ton of credit. Mills, Cross, Rubio, Bryce Young, RJ Open had a big mistake on the offside. He didn't play great. He played hard. It's like, you got to give this guy a lot of love, Sean, because he's playing with as big of a mash unit as you can get. At least with the offensive line, it's kind of like Jagasol got hurt, and then Craig and Schrouth went down in the same game. You've now had 3 games in a row where you've had the same offensive line. Al Washington has not had the same offensive line for more than 2 games, defensive line for more than 2 games all season. You had the first 2 games of the year, and he was even missing Rubio then. He has never had his full complement of players all season. Now, neither has Joe Rudolph, but this defensive line is really clicking, Sean. I thought they really played well against Louisville last week. They took it to a whole new level this week against Stanford. Not a great offensive line, but again, they did what you're supposed to do. Bryce Young keeps getting better every week. They had to throw Logan Thomas in the game, last game against Louisville. He's doing a heck of a job getting this line to play the way that he has. And we'll criticize you when you deserve it. We're going to praise you when you deserve it. That's how we roll. And right now, I wanted to see how this game was going to go before I had this conversation. I want to praise them during the bye week, and then they come out and they suck against Stanford. They came out of this game. We knew they were going to be down Traore. Didn't know if we were going to get Rubio back. You find out before the game that Jason Onye is not with the team. And you're like, well, this is interesting. Josh Burnham's going to be super rusty. Gabriel Rubio is going to be super rusty. And you don't have your most talented defensive lineman, second most talented, one of your 2 most talented defensive linemen in Boo Traore. And your most talented guy is a true freshman. Let's see how this is going to go.
Yeah.
And they were excellent, Sean. I mean, they really were excellent in this game. And so the players deserve a ton of credit. But you know what? So does Al Washington to keep those kids locked in and find a way to push the right buttons to get your veterans to get their heads out of the you-know-whats and start playing big-time football. Deserves a lot of credit for that, Sean.
I think we could have saw a lot more fire, not from characteristic or emotion. I'm talking about fire schematically as far as blitzes and things of that nature. But it was really the front 4 with their schemes and their stunts that applied pressure and got Daniels unsettled in the pocket. It really did. They did a great job today. And it starts with those 2 interior guys doing what they do, kind of mirroring. Coming off the bye week, those 2 guys got back to doing what they do. Like maybe they were trying to work on some things earlier, right? Saying that if I get better in this way, maybe my stock goes up. No, you know what? Be who you are. Do what you do. And that's how you're going to impact this defense. And just like Riley Leonard, coaching staff found a way to get him back to doing what he does best. Coaching staff, Al Washington, found a way to get his 2 leaders in the front to get back to doing what they do. Be physical, get in between, get upfield, impact the run game, impact the passing game, and put pressure on the quarterback. This is what you do, guys. This is why you were recognized last year. This is why you came back to be this for this young defense. This is why you came back. If this is who you're going to be moving forward, these young guys are going to follow you and they're going to make plays. And you already know what we have on the back end. So, yeah, tip of the cap. Because after that Northern Illinois game, the excuses we heard, it didn't sound good. And we were questioning whether or not they would be able to recover on the defensive line. So you tip your cap to the players, but absolutely to Al Washington in the way he was able to galvanize his group, circle the wagons, and get them moving forward and being dominant the way they've done. You saw it. You saw remnants of it against Louisville. You saw improvement and them playing even better today. And I expect them to keep moving going into Georgia Tech. It's great signs.
That's going to be the key, right, Sean, is now build on it. Keep this rolling. Keep this going. Have some consistency. It's going to be important. Yeah. Defensively also, Sean, I thought the linebackers were probably had their most sound day for the most part. I mean, they're always going to have some plays here and there, and they certainly had those today. But you're starting to see this linebacking core really fly downhill. I thought the first quarter, Stanford would have had a lot more success in the run game if Drake Bowen wasn't just flying downhill, just blowing people up.
Yeah.
He had 4 tackles in the game. They all came in the first quarter. And after the first quarter, Stanford was like, we can't run the ball on these guys. We can't. It took us 3 plays to get into the end zone, and we didn't really even get in the end zone.
Yeah.
I mean, that quarterback's a big boy, Sean.
Lanson, yeah.
And he hit Drake Bowen, or let me rephrase that, okay? Drake Bowen hit him at the goal line, and he just stopped. Yeah. I mean, I'm like, that's going to be an easy score. And he hit him, and he just stopped. Drake is starting to play with a level of physicality we haven't seen at linebacker since probably Tavon Coney was at Notre Dame.
That's a good call.
We've seen really good players like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was a phenomenal player. I'm talking about just a Mike linebacker that just goes downhill and thumps people. We haven't seen that since Tavon in 18. We're starting to see that from Drake. And then Kingston and those two as a duo, it's like that. This linebacking core is really good. Now, there was a couple plays, like there was a play where I think it was Kingston and Jaden Osborne on the field. Kingston had a bad fit. Jaden didn't take on a block well. Stanford had a really nice gain. There was a couple plays like that they're going to have to get cleaned up. You're going to have that with young kids. But overall, like there was a play I saw them. They ran a jet sweep, and I'm thinking, uh-oh, they got the edge. And all of a sudden, I think it was Benjamin Morrison and Jaden Osborne it was like a 2-yard gain.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that was going to go for 15.
I know it was Emmett Mosley.
Right?
Yeah, it was Emmett Mosley.
And I'm like, dude, that's going to go. That's going to go for like that. He's not that it was going to be a touchdown. Like that's going to get around the edge for at least a 10-yard gain, and it went for 2. Yeah. Emmett Mosley's a really good athlete. Notre Dame tried to recruit that kid, Sean. Yeah. And you're like, good Lord, the closing speed this group has. It's unreal. It's unreal. And Kingston probably had his most. I don't. There was a play. I'm trying to remember what play it was, Sean, but there was a play where they ran a quick perimeter screen. And I think it was Xavier Watts just blew it up, and the guy cuts back inside, and he's kind of like, uh-oh. 27 just read it completely and blew the guy up, and Kingston was fired up, man. It's just like, you're just like, I don't know what we're supposed to do, man. Like everything we do, there was a play where they ran like a quick jet sweep, and Jordan Clark comes up and fly. He doesn't make the tackle. I mean, maybe he could have, but his job was force. I got to force this back inside. And and again, it was another play. I'm like, they might have something here. And the guy cuts it up, and next thing you know, I think it was Donovan Heinisch and a linebacker come flying and tackle the guy for like a 3-yard gain. And you're just like, the pursuit by this football team is outstanding. I thought this was the most active I thought Jack Kaiser has been all season. I thought Jack was flying around early in the game as well. This was a really good performance. The only negative I saw, like really big negative, was Jalen Stee's just got to understand what contain means on the outside. Like just you can't give up the edge like that. But overall, I thought the off-ball linebackers in this game were outstanding. I really did. There just was nowhere for Stanford to go running the football in this game. And you know, it had to be a little bit disheartening for Stanford because it's like that's the only way they have a chance to win is to be able to run the football, Sean. I mean, they ran for 236 yards against Clemson. They ran for 173 yards against Syracuse. They only went for 121 against TCU. They ran for 136 against Virginia Tech, and that was without their starting quarterback, right? In this game, they went for 113 yards on 41 carries, 2.8 yards per carry. Like it was disruptive. And
how many yards did Daniels run for?
Daniels had, because he had that 127-yard run, he ended up with 42 yards rushing on 14 carries. He had minus 33, and 27 of that came on 1 carry.
I predicted that Notre Dame would hold them to 80 yards rushing.
They ended up with 113. I'd be curious how much of that was on the last couple drives.
You take away the quarterback rushes, just the normal run game. I think Notre
45,
Dame did very
55, 64, 66. They had 71 yards in the non-Ashton Daniels quarterback runs. I still count Justin Lamson as running back runs because that dude's basically he's a running back that has QB on his roster, but he's a running back. That kid can't throw a lick.
Yeah.
They held him under 80 yards rushing. Chris Davis came into the game averaging 7.3 yards per carry. He averaged 4.5. They didn't have Micah Ford in the game, which certainly helped Notre Dame. But, I mean, in the 27-yard run was a scramble. It wasn't even a run.
Yeah.
It was a pass play.
Yeah.
So to your point, Sean, I mean, if you take that away, like the running game produced much less 113.
Yeah.
And again, this is a team that ran for 236 yards and 5.4 yards per carry against Clemson. And they did that while holding Stanford to 87 passing yards. This is the second time this season that Notre Dame has held a Power 4 football team to 100 passing yards or fewer in a game. They held, think about that. They held A&M to 100. They held Purdue to 124. And they held Stanford to 87. Man. This is an elite pass defense, man. It is a special pass defense. Alec Ayumanor is going to have nightmares about this team. He's a really talented player. Had 3 catches for 17 yards. 3 catches for 16 yards in this game. That's not even a great rushing average, Sean.
No. Al Golden is so maniacal, man. I told you this yesterday. I was like, oh, he's blowing smoke on Tuesdays when he is buttering up every offensive coordinator and play caller and just talking about how good they are, how much the challenge. Because as soon as he gets back in the locker room, he's like, yeah, we're going to tear these guys apart.
Mm-hmm.
This is how we're going to do it. Yep. He always, we'll get to the third down packages tomorrow. We did this. We look great. We get the third down tomorrow. It's like, you know what? He's locked in. The more he bloviates about the offensive coordinator, the scarier I would be. If I scared more, I would be even more scared as that offensive coordinator to hear him bloviating about how good we are. I would, because that's just the stuff he comes up with, how quickly he can adjust on the fly, take away what you're doing. But then this is the key. We go back to the Louisville game. Make you think you're being successful, and he's setting a trap the entire time. Like he's making you do what he wants you to do, only to get you into the web and then unleash on you. Right? I think Mike Denbrock kind of did the same thing today. Offensively, just really put them in a bind, set them up so the run game could just be unleashed. Man, I don't know what else to say about this game, offensively or defensively.
You know what I like, Sean, is I actually think if you look at Notre Dame's defense, I don't like there's a lot of complexity to it, but I don't feel like and it has to be when you're going, I mean, in the last 2 weeks, he's gone against two really good offensive minds in Troy Taylor and Jeff Brom. And, you know, like last week against Louisville, who has a pretty good pass offense, they gave up 264 passing yards but they did it on 41 pass attempts because they, 6.4 yards per attempt. You know, so it's like he's doing it against some good football teams. You know what I mean? And when I look at what he does, though, he does a really good job of saying, hey, we got a scheme, we got to do all this, but I got to trust my players. And you can tell, like, early in the season, as the linebackers are still learning, he's not putting quite as much on them as he did on JD and Maris last year. And then they're getting more comfortable, and he's starting to add a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, and they're handling it, and they're playing well. And the defense keeps getting better and better. And again, this is not a very good Stanford offense. It's not at all. But they did exactly what you're supposed to do when you're an elite defense playing a not very good offense. They dominated it. I mean, Stanford, think about this. Stanford had, again, 85 yards on their first two series and 115 the rest of the game. You know, like that's I mean, it's an impressive performance, but he's allowing his players to go make plays because you don't play as much man coverage as you do if you don't think you've got dudes. I mean, again, we gave Al Washington love earlier. Let's give Mike Mickens some love now. Max Bullen deserves some love as well. But, Al Golden understands I got really good players. And I'm going to trust my really good players to go out there and do their jobs. I'm going to trust Jordan Clark to be in space by himself. Have we seen a rover this year? Like, have we seen the rover play at all this year? Which means you're asking Jordan Clark to also be a force player in running downs.
Absolutely.
And he's handling his business. You're trusting a Don Schuler to play like a veteran. And he's going to make his mistakes, but you're not seeing them overreact to those mistakes and start yanking guys. Like, the only time we've seen them yank guys on defense is when they make boneheaded plays, like Adon, the penalty he got. You're not seeing when they make mistakes. Adon misses a tackle. Oh, get on the sideline. You freaking suck. I mean, it's like, they're correcting it. But I had somebody tell me that's on the sideline, they're like, it is creepy how calm he is during games. But you saw him get a little fired up today, though, Sean.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Like, seeing him, he got a little fired up. He's normally like super calm during games.
Yeah.
Last couple games, you've seen Al Golden get a little bit fired up when things go well. I think he's starting to feel this defense a little bit. Like, he's starting to feel like, hey, we're kind of getting where I want to get to.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I think he also realizes that these kids need a little bit of a push. because they are young in a lot of spots. This is a really young football team in a lot of spots. And they need that little bit of a push. And we're seeing that, man. And they're starting to really play at a high level. Again, this isn't a very good Stanford offense, but they dominated it. And when you've got a secondary, somebody asked me, I'm trying to remember, it was yesterday. It was on Twitter today. Somebody asked me, does Notre Dame have a good enough secondary to handle Ohio State's pass receivers? And I said, well, their secondary is better than it was last year. Implying, well, they handled an Ohio State receiving corps that had Marvin Harrison on it last year, and they're better in the secondary this year than they were last year.
Yeah.
They're at the very least, they're as good at corner, at the very least. And they're way better at safety. Xavier Watts doesn't have the numbers he had last year. I mean, he's actually, well, I should at least say in regard to interceptions, which
his impact is
he's
immense.
Such a better player now, Sean.
Yes.
Such a better player now than he was last year. I mean, he is. I mean, you just see little things that he does where you're just like, boy, this guy, man. This guy's just a heck of a football player. I mean, just chasing guys down to the sideline. You had that play where he just blows up a screen, it forces the guy back inside, and then right into Kingston's arms. He's just getting guys lined up on the back end of the defense, and just and you saw it again today. He's just such a good, and he's not putting up like monster numbers, Sean, because again, he's not getting thrown at a whole lot. He did have a pick today. I still don't feel okay. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about officiating.
That wasn't pass interference. It was not. No. Nowhere near pass interference. No. And if you watch the TV feed, I want you to watch the TV feed. The flag was thrown literally as he was touching him. He was already reaching for the flag. It was almost like he just predetermined, okay, this is about to be passed. Mm-hmm. He anticipated a hole because the receiver spun and went deep on the scramble, and it didn't happen.
It's a nice way of putting it, Sean. He anticipated a flag.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's Sean just gave head coaches tape on how to be critical of refs without getting fined $25,000. You know what I mean? I just think he kind of anticipated that.
He anticipated the foul. It didn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. But I thought Benjamin, I'm going to have to go back and watch it. I thought Benjamin was really good today. I thought Christian was a little bit rusty early. I thought Christian, you could tell he was a kid that hadn't played in 3 weeks,
right.
Bit on the double move and got beat and was a little bit off on coverage. He was a little bit shaky. I thought Leonard Moore came in and played great. Christian needed this game to kind of get back into the flow. He'll be fine. Don had that early missed tackle. What I love about this defense, Sean, is they have super, super short memories just across the board. Nobody gets upset about stuff. It's like I make a mistake. It's like, whatever, I'm going to go make the next play. Kingston Viliamaasa gives up a big play up the seam. I think he has a sack like on the next series. It's just like they just don't let stuff bother them. That's recruiting kids with a certain attitude.
Yeah.
But that's also coaching.
Yeah.
That tells me that when these kids make mistakes, they get corrected and they move on. Correct it, move on. You're not, you know what I mean? You're not getting there just getting because guys that just get constantly berated whenever they make a mistake, they're the ones that kind of get panicked a little bit when they make a mistake. Like, oh God, coach is going to, you know what I mean? It's like when we were kids, Sean, and mom would be like, wait till your father gets home. And like the rest of your day is ruined because you're waiting on your father to get home. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, I'm going to be in so much trouble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not leaving the house. I'm not leaving the yard. I'm not doing anything that might get me in more trouble. But these kids are like, no, look, correct it, move on. Correct it, move on. Correct it, move on. And so you not only have kids that are confident on defense, but you have young men that understand, you correct it and you move on to the next play. That's that whole, one play, one life mentality that Marcus Freeman has. You get beat, move on. Next play. Let's go get it. And this defense does a pretty good job. They could have been shook by that early start from Stanford. They buckled in and they bounced back and they made plays. They could have been like, hey, here we go again. Offense punts. They go down the field, score. Like, here we go again. And they didn't. They buckled down and they went and made plays.
Yeah. But the turn today it was the offense that really set the tone.
Yeah.
Even after
second game in a row.
That second drive, Stanford scores, offense comes right back. Like, nope. And then the defense finally makes a play on that second Stanford drive. And from there, like you said, it was a wrap. It was absolutely a wrap.
So Sean, defensively, we're gonna kind of start to wrap the show up here a little bit, but I want to have some fun handing out some game balls a little bit today, Sean.
Let's go.
So let's start with the offense. Game balls can be most outstanding, most valuable, most needed, whatever you want it to be. You can take it how you want it. You're Sean Davis, head football coach at Notre Dame, or head of game ball presentation at Notre Dame. Who on offense gets your game ball today, Sean?
Riley Leonard. Mm-hmm. Riley Leonard. Look, the young man played confidently, and I don't think it was something that happened during the game. I think he came into the game with that confidence. Whatever took place during the bye week, schematically, coaching, technique-wise, it clicked. They found a way to get him comfortable, and he came into the game comfortable. And you saw it from the very beginning, and everybody fed off of that. And that's what you saw from this offensive output with 8 receivers catching a pass, 7 players scoring a touchdown, him going over 200 yards passing, probably could have gotten to 300 if he had stayed in the game, and then them running the ball for over 200 yards. This is the total offense we expected to see from Notre Dame with Mike Denbrock coming from LSU, and it's just the beginning.
Any others that deserve recognition offensively?
I get more than one?
No, just other guys that you're like, hey, you did great, you did great, but we're giving this one to
the entire running back room.
Yeah.
The entire running back room. All of them. They all got in the game and all showed their butts. They all showed their butts today. It's like, really? That's what we're doing? Y'all just going to show out? You know how your parents, you would be in a grocery store and you would do something. Your parents be looking around and say, if you act out here, I'm going to get you here. Mm-hmm. They acted out today.
Yeah. They were
all of the running backs acted out today.
They were fun to watch.
Yes.
Yeah. This backfield is really, really good. All right, Mr. Davis, my offensive player of the game, my game ball again goes to Riley Leonard. He was the tone setter for this football team, avoiding sacks, making plays, getting the ball where he needs to get to, encouraging his teammates. When Bo made that route, Riley didn't go over there and get in his face and show him up like Mitchell Evans has tried to do to Riley Leonard at times this year and show him up and stuff like that. He went over to him and was like, you could see him talking to him, but he wasn't like, come on, man. It was like, hey, you're supposed to, and then goes right back to Bo after a couple. I mean, that's what you want to see from your quarterback, man, is like, hey, listen, you know what? Like, we got you. This is what you need to do. I'm going to come back to you, though, right? Because you need them to have that mindset, because you need them to have that mindset towards you when you miss a throw. You don't want them to, come on, man, throw me the ball, and you don't do that to them, right? And I thought he showed leadership, great leadership today. I mean, he's been a leader all year, but it's better when you're playing well. You know what I mean? And this is the Riley Leonard we thought we were going to get from Duke. I mean, he was on pace for 300 yards in this game. What did I say he finished with, Sean? What was his total in this game? He had, let's see, Riley finished with, he went 16 of 22 for 229 yards. So 229 divided by 3 times 4. He was on pace for 305 yards in this game, passing. And, and also 40 yards rushing. And he had accounted for 4 touchdowns. Even like little things like just the throw to the left to Eli Rainer for the touchdown. Yeah, that's an easy throw and he should make it, but that's a throw he's missed multiple times here. And he just kind of snapped it out over there and got it to him. So he gets my game, though. I'm giving special shout out. And I think Jeremiah Love showed himself to be a great teammate today, too. Because he knew why Jadarian was. You don't think Jeremiah wanted all those early touches from Jadarian? He knew why. You know what I mean? He didn't go in there with attitude, and he was cheering his teammate on. That was good to see. I thought Eli Raridan and Cooper Flanagan played really well in the run game. I thought they improved. We didn't talk about that earlier, but my game ball goes to Riley Leonard. All right, time to go to defense, Sean. Who gets your game ball for the Notre Dame defense?
You know what? I'm going to take a singular play and shout this kid out. Returning from injury, Joshua Burnham, just on time. The pick, touchdown, absolutely fantastic play. He had another big play, pressure, sack early in the game. Later in the game. So, look, Joshua Burnham is going to get my ball. I could go with a lot of different players because I think just like similarly to the offense, there are a lot of players that made big plays at some point in this game, especially in key positions of the game on key downs. So I'm going to go ahead and give Joshua Burnham, because of the spectacular play he made, I'm going to give him my game ball in his return.
But that's a good one, Sean. I'm going with my two inside guy. I love me some Josh Burnham, and I like that one. I mean, you could give it to the one of the linebackers. You could give it to, Benjamin Morrison, locking down Elakea Manor. You could give it to Xavier Watts, played a great football game. I'm giving it to my two inside guys. I'm gonna let them rotate it every other day.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get. You have multiple on one game ball in a game, Sean. You have a rotation. I'm taking two of them. I'm giving them one to Riley Mills, one to Howard Cross. We talk about how Riley Leonard set the tone for the offense early. I thought Howard Cross and Riley Mills set the tone for the Notre Dame defense. I do. I think that they could have. I mean, you saw this. This was a great part of it. Did you see what the TV copy showed right before the fourth quarter started? And the team was in a huddle. Did you see who was in the middle of it, going crazy, getting his team fired up, like we're going to finish this thing? It was Riley Mills, acting like a captain. Howard Cross today acted like it's that scene from Rudy. You're an All-American. Act like it. Howard Cross is like, got you. Okay, coach, I'm with you. I'm going to go do it. And he did. And Riley Mills like, dude, yeah, you're a captain. That's great, but I need you to play like a dog. And Riley Mills today did that. I thought those two kids, I felt, Sean, set the tone for this entire game. I mean, remember earlier in the season, we were flipping out about how there was a couple games they combined for like 1 or 2 tackles. That's it. Today, they combined for 8 tackles, 6 solo, 3 sacks, which also includes 3 tackles for loss. And 2 of the sacks that Notre Dame got on defense today, they had 4, were plays where Riley Mills had the pressure that forced the quarterback into the arms.
Yeah.
They set the tone for this defense today. So I'm giving a game ball to both of them. I thought Howard had those 2 huge plays early. He was playing with you could see him, Sean. He was kind of talking that talk a little bit today.
Yeah.
And that was good to see. He was playing great. And you wonder, like, okay, I know he's a little banged up. There's some other things going on. He's a little fresher, got the week off, but him and Riley Mills were tone setters today, Sean, for the defense.
Absolutely.
And
totally
that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. So they're getting my game balls. I'm giving one to each of them, Howard Cross and Riley Mills. Tied for set tackles with 4. Howard had the 2 sacks. Riley had the 1 sack. Notre Dame ended the game with 8 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, forced a fumble. Josh Burnham forced a fumble and recovered a fumble. He was your player of the game. Hadn't played since the second game of the year, so missed 3 full games. Comes back and he played about 4 snaps against Louisville, and his ankle was really tight. He couldn't go. He came back in his first game back, and he had 5 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, a forced fumble, and he would have had another play. He had contain on one of those bootleg scrambles. He had contain, and he was coming off to the contain, and the guy's yanking his jersey back, and Josh is and no call.
Dude,
call.
None.
What you saw today is you're going to lose a little bit from a pass rush standpoint at Viper moving forward. Junior and Josh are not the pass rushers that Batelho and especially Boubacar were. But what you saw today is they are outstanding run defenders at that Viper position. There was multiple plays where Josh, I got notes down here like 40, check, edge set, 40, check, edge set. That means good job because, I'm trying to write fast. I mean, you're seeing that 20, good force. You know what I mean? It's like there's a lot of things. It's good, good fill here by 27. On the sack by Howard Cross, 30-99 pressure. I mean, great defenses aren't great because they have a great player. The Giants weren't great in the 80s because they had Lawrence Taylor, and that was it. Because we've seen great players be on bad teams. Walter Payton spent most of his career on very mediocre to bad Bears teams. Didn't mean he was any less great.
Right.
John Elway played on some very mediocre Bronco teams. Didn't mean he was any less great. You're a great defense because you're spreading it around. And today I thought was one of those performances, Sean, where whether it was Burnham, I mean, RJ Open had his best game. Again, not impactful, but had his best game. Gabriel Rubio coming back playing hard. He almost had a big tackle for loss early in the game. Yeah. To see so many different guys contributing, like that's how you're going to overcome injuries. It's not Burnham has to be Batelho and Boubacar all by himself. Okay, well, if you can't get as much pressure at Viper, then D tackles, you guys need to step up and give pressure. Check. Hey, big end position. We need you guys to step up and give more pressure. Bryce Young's like, got you, coach. You know what I mean? Like linebackers, I need you to fit better in the run game. Got it, coach. You know what I mean? Hey, Benjamin, bro, you're doing okay, but I need you to be a star. Okay, coach, got you. I can do that. You know what I mean? You saw such a great team performance but if I'm, just you love it. But it started where, Sean? Right up the middle with your veterans. I thought that was huge. And you know what? I'm going to give a little bit of a shout out here on special teams too, Sean, to Eric Goyens and Zach Yoakum, because they had to step in today. Mitch Jeter, I think he got hurt on the first play of the game.
First play of the game, yeah.
And Mitch and he kicked the field goal, or he kicked an extra point and then came out. Zach Yoakum came in, nailed his next 5 PATs, and then Eric Goyens came in, kicked off 7 times, had 5 touchbacks, and another one pinned them at the 3-yard line. So, talk about next man in, step up.
They need to change that rule. They need to change that rule.
What's that?
I understand it's a very intelligent play when you establish yourself out of bounds and touch the ball to get the extra 10 yards. Yeah. But I'm like, please change that rule, because when you're out of bounds, that should be a legal touch, in my opinion. But you shouldn't be able to touch the ball. But it was a smart play. They reviewed it, didn't flip it, so it turned out in Notre Dame's favor. But that's a play that a rule I would like to see.
There's several dumb rules in college football that need to get fixed.
Yeah. But they missed the pass interference on Bo, just flat out missed it. They missed a intentional grounding. They said someone was in the area. He was
not thrown anywhere near that guy.
No, that was an obvious hold on Benjamin Morrison on the Daniels big scramble, and it's nothing.
There was a hold on Josh Burnham. I mean, a blatant hold on Josh Burnham.
Yes,
and I thought, the Anthony Knapp held. It was kind of ticky-tack, and it didn't impact the play.
Yeah.
That's all. I've always felt holds shouldn't be called if they don't impact the play. But it technically was a hold. It was a very poor officiated game.
I agree.
Very poor officiated game, Sean. It was ACC officials are awful. But that's why, you know what? That's why you play the way you play today. You don't leave it in their hands.
Yeah.
You know what? Go out and play. Like like you said, the pass interference of Benjamin Morrison, I still don't understand where that. They called holding. They called holding on him.
Yeah.
Didn't see it. Like he dominated that guy. And I know you're in the ACC, you don't see a lot of dominant corners, but this is what dominant cornerback play looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was awful. Awful. Absolutely awful. And I listened to a little bit of the broadcast today. If you were to tell me that Jason Garrett doesn't want to do Notre Dame games anymore and he's trying to get himself fired, I would believe you. I don't need a pro Notre Dame broadcast, Sean. I don't care about that. I want a good broadcast. It is, oh my God. It's like he's actively, and I don't get into that petty, this guy. It is bad, Sean. I was trying to listen. It's bad.
Tried to tell you.
Like, it is bad. He is awful. This guy used to be a head coach in the National Football League. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Does he not watch any film during the week? He just kind of shows up for game day on Saturday. Like, who are these kids again? He is terrible.
Yeah.
Dan Hicks isn't that much better either. I used to like Dan Hicks as a play-by-play guy. He has been very disappointing this season. It's like,
It's a 2-for-1. It's a 2-for-1 for the network, right?
Yeah.
They get them on Sunday nights, but they also get them for Notre Dame games. So
terrible.
It's a 2-for-1.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pete Pavakwa knows some people over there. He's got to do something about that. Like, listen, stop giving us your freaking JV team for these football games.
Yeah.
Look, again, we don't need a pro Notre Dame broadcast, but we don't need an anti Notre Dame broadcast either. You know what I mean? Like, they're taking that whole, we're trying to be, Mike Tirico used to talk about this. People get mad at him for not being pro Notre Dame. And I'm like, his job isn't to be pro Notre Dame. And he had explained that a couple times. Like, our job is to call it. And I thought Mike Tirico did a great job when he was the play-by-play guy. And it's been a struggle ever since. It really has. Sean, that's going to do it for this portion. We're going to have the super chats coming up next, folks. So make sure that you guys stay around for that. But do us a favor, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, share this podcast, give us a 5-star review. And of course, as always, make sure you sign up for the message board at boards.irishbreakdown.com. So, Sean, we did have some super chats, and I always love diving into the super chats. So we're going to dive into those now. We don't do a mailbag per se after the games, but we do if you have a super chat you wanted to get in there, we will do it. So we're going to kick things off, Sean, with Alex Udell. Thank you for the super chat, Alex. Highlight of the game was Pat Coogan signaling first down. That was awesome. The field awareness by a center to know he got the first down, but you know that a game is going your way when your center catches a batted down pass and runs for 11 yards.
That was absolutely amazing by the young man, right? RPO gets batted down by the linebacker right into the hands of Pat. That is a lineman's dream. That is a lineman's dream. And he took off. He took off, knew where the first down marker was, knew he made it. And just like a true wide receiver, he probably had practiced that for days in his dorm room or his apartment. Like, if this ever happens to me, I'm giving the signal.
That's right.
You love to see it. You love to see it.
You know, very hard on Pat Coogan over the last couple of years. And I don't take anything back I've said, because it's always been about football. I didn't think he played well last year. But you know what? You talk about a great team player. Pat Coogan was a 13-game starter last year. They got beat out by a kid who's never played a meaningful snap in his life.
Yeah.
Rocco Spindler, same thing. You know, well, although Schroeth had played, but you know what I mean? Like, got beat out by a younger player. And both of those guys had every reason in the world to be like all these other players that I'm redshirting and I'm not going to play. I'm going to save a year of eligibility. I'm going to do this. I'm going to have a bad attitude. I'm going to sit and pout and, piss and moan and whine and be a cancer in the locker room because I'm not playing. And every game you'd see Pat Coogan, one of the first guys out of the tunnel. You know, first guys congratulating the offensive line after a score. First guy being fired up. I mean, because I think he was on PAT field goal and he'd be running out in the field fired up after touchdowns early in the year. And he comes back and he plays with such fire. And again, he still has some of the limitations athleticism, but they don't hurt him as much at center. He's actually been a pretty decent center so far. But he comes out today, doesn't have a great game against Louisville, comes out today playing with fire, playing with energy, really setting the tone. Like, I got to send you the video of Riley Leonard's touchdown run against Miami of Ohio that put it away. And I got to show you Pat Coogan, how he was running down the field. It was hilarious. It was hilarious. He was so fired up, man. But that's the kind of teammate you want.
Yeah.
He could be in his feelings about losing the starting job, but he was, hey, you know what? I'm going to be a great teammate. And if my number's called, I'm going to be ready. And both him and Rocco Spindler have both been that. And we hammer the modern athlete, and a lot of times rightfully so, because they're losing what makes sports great, not just for enjoying it, but for developing you as a person.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of young men out there, Sean, that aren't that way. And we need to praise those young men. And these two kids are examples of that. But he was so excited about that. That was just great to see. Tyler Evans with a super chat. Thank you, Tyler. He says, I'm pumped for the win, much needed after the bye week. Still have some stuff to clean up. On to Atlanta next week against a stingy Georgia Tech team. They had a nice win today. They battled. Carolina kept coming back. They'd go down and score. Did they go into overtime, or was that long run at the end?
No,
that was at the end of the game, right?
Yeah, that happened with like
minute.
18 seconds left. Yeah.
George, Mac Brown, great coach, probably a Hall of Famer for the job he did at Carolina the first time, plus at Texas. But he just has no idea how to get a defense. Third defensive coordinator, and it's the same result every time.
Yeah. It's
sad, because he came back for a school he loves, and it just hasn't worked out for him. But their defense is a hot mess, real hot mess. It's gotten worse with each replacement. You know what I mean? Like, you look back and be like, you can make a case that what's the name of the guy that's at A&M that I'm always giving a hard time to, Sean? I'm drawing an absolute blank tonight. The defensive coordinator.
Defensive coordinator. Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
I can't believe
He was at North Carolina.
Yes.
Jay
Bateman.
Yeah, yes.
Jay Bateman. And you could make an argument case that that's probably the best football on defense they've played was with him, and that's not saying much, but it's rough, dude. It's rough.
It's something that Georgia Tech team, I think they've come back down to earth a little bit, in the sense of where they were and the view you had of them after they beat Florida State. And they played a good game on the road against Louisville. Duke had the lead late in the fourth quarter against them at Georgia Tech. So I don't know how good they are. I think we'll find out next week just how good they are.
They're scrappy.
Yes.
We'll find out how good they are, but they're scrappy. They got some talent on offense. They got a really talented running back. He kind of had a little bit of a breakout game today. I feel he hasn't really – the teams have been keen on him a lot, Sean. They really have. And he hasn't really been able to quite get rolling, the way that you'd think. But came out today. I thought Hayden's King had made a lot of plays on the ground today. You know, he had 107 yards, but Jamal Haynes finally had that breakout game at 170 yards, and it was, I think, the 68-yarder was the one that won it at the end of the game, I believe.
Yeah.
So he's now has back-to-back games. He's been over 100 yards each of the last 2 games, Sean. So they're starting to kind of get it going. They're not a super talented team on defense, but they're well coached and they're scrappy. You got a Mike Elko disciple leading that defense, was at Notre Dame in 17 with Elko, Tyler Santucci. So it's going to be a battle. Notre Dame's got to bring it, right? I mean, they're the better team, but if they don't bring it, then, you know, all this good vibes we have now could be out the window.
Yeah.
Iden Benami with a super chat. Thank you, my friend. Love a stress-free Saturday. Let's keep building, keep battling. I love our freshmen. They're amazing. Coach D in the zone in the post game. Just to let everybody know, Vince was on a recruiting trip today with his son. Trevor had an event with his wife. They're out of town today, which he had planned before he got hired at IB, and so I'm going to honor that because family first is the way we do things. And if you all could keep Ryan and his family in your prayers today, we would appreciate that a lot too, because he's going to need the support of the Notre Dame community and you know, just keep him in your prayers and yeah, just keep him in your prayers, him and his family in your prayers. Yeah. But that's why it's Sean and I doing the solo show today. So we tried to hold it down. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it. I hope y'all enjoyed the show so far, but we're going to keep it rolling. Iden with another super chat. Thank you, Iden. Has Snead been playing much the last few games? Not really, no, not a lot. He played a little bit today on third down, not a lot. And it's not necessarily that Jalen Snead's not a good football player. It's just those other kids are so good. And it's hard to justify taking him off the field, to be completely honest with you. But no, he has not. He's not played a ton the last couple games. I think he only played 13 snaps, 12 snaps against Louisville, 23 against Miami of Ohio. Looks like Pro Football Focus already has a snap count up. He only played 13 snaps today. Did have two pressures in the game, you know, but according to Pro Football Focus. But he hasn't played a ton. He's just kind of a situational pass rusher right now is kind of where he's at. Stop 7 with a super chat. Thank you very much. Love the progress. I want to preface by saying I love J.D. Price, but J. Love is different. Think we need to get him the ball more, especially down the stretch. Sean, I don't agree with that. You don't need to force the ball to him a ton right now. Not in a game like this. There's going to be games this year where he might need 20 touches to win the game.
Yeah.
You don't do that against Stanford, especially when they're trying to make the point they were trying to make today. And if you go out and win a football game and score 49 points, you know, with your most outstanding offense, because I was asked this question, Sean. Notre Dame's MVP through the first 5 games is Riley Leonard. Most valuable player. Most outstanding player is Jeremiah Love, and it's
absolutely
clear.
Yeah.
So when you can go do what you did today and your most outstanding player only touches the ball 7 times and he has 78 yards, I mean, that's a pretty good day's work. They didn't need to force feed the ball to Jeremiah Love today. He's going to have plenty of those chances. You may need him to touch it 20 times next week. Yeah. You may need him to touch it 20 times against Navy. You may need him to touch it 30 times against USC. Who knows? So when you have a chance to have other guys really help you win, that's a good thing, because now that wear and tear on him, you're definitely going to need him to be healthy and fresh come December and January. So why force the issue now? I understand. I want to see it. It's fun to watch. We saw that on the touchdown run. It's like, as soon as he got that step, you're like, band, get ready. We're about to, you know what I mean? Like, get ready, guys. It's fun to watch backs like that, Sean, when you have guys that as soon as they get a step, you're like, see ya.
Yeah, I love the fact that, you know, the young man is going to be better because of the development of the other players around him. Other players getting involved makes him even more impactful, especially against better teams. So enjoy it. Enjoy it. Those explosive games are coming. They're coming.
You got to remember, this is a kid that carried the ball 50 times last year, 50, 60 times last year.
Yeah.
He's up to 210 almost, but he's still a true sophomore. He's still a teenager who, if your season goes the way you hope it does, Sean, you still have 10 games left, right? You guys understand that, right? If Notre Dame's going to win, is going to be the team we hope as fans. We always want them to win a title.
Right.
They got to play 10 more games. 10 more games. I do not want Jeremiah Love touching it 15, 20 times against Stanford if you don't have to.
No.
When you've got 10 more games, not 10, including 10 left after this game. So I'm good. Yeah. Use all your weapons now. And then when you need to, okay, Jeremiah, we need you to ramp this up a little bit, baby, then you do it. And but I'm with you though, S Stops. He's fun to watch. He's really fun to watch. That's what I loved about that screen call, Sean. It's like, look, let's just do a little something different here, you know? And we saw a little bit of 21 personnel today. Did you see that?
Yes, sir. Well, I wonder what you think. I heard someone say that because of the evolution of defensive football and all of these great exotic defensive coordinators, now these kids really don't know how to fit 21 and 12 personnel. Like you come out 12 and 21, the run fits are really bad when you watch football from a defensive standpoint. So that's something that is an exotic defense they're playing next week. They're playing an exotic defense that likes to blitz from a lot of different places. So watch the run fits. Should be interesting.
Very interesting to see how that goes. Iden Benami with another one. Thank you, Iden. Welcome back, Howard and Riley Mills. Let's fire it up. Absolutely. And another one from Iden. Iden is in a good mood tonight, and I dig it. Mid-season Notre Dame Saturdays is what we live for. Thank you, IB. You're welcome, my friend. Very welcome. I'm glad that I could be with you guys tonight for the game. I will not be with you all next week for the post-game show because I'll be down in Atlanta at the game. So it'll be the boys will be holding it down next week, though. T. Smith 0323, the super chat. Thank you, man. What I loved tonight was seeing Leonard and the boys showing off after each big play. It truly showed their confidence. That's a good point, Sean, because I'm not someone who likes just to talk trash. When it's a manifestation of a clearly confident football team, I'm with it.
Yeah.
Mark E. Stewart with a super chat. Thank you, Mark. When is Under Armour going to change the uniform pants? LOL, just kidding. Great win for the Irish. Had fun watching the game. I do have a comment about the uniform, Sean.
Okay.
When I first saw the shiny gold around the uniforms, I was not feeling it.
Like it?
Because you know me, Sean. I'm 46. I'm my first reaction to change is usually not favorable. It's like when they went from the 14 playoff to the 12-team playoff. I was initially very much against it. Quickly, I changed my mind, and now I love it. But I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like that. But when you see them in person and when you see them on TV, you're like, that is popping. Yes, it is nice.
Yeah,
because I thought it was going to look rubbery. Shiny and rubbery, and it doesn't. It looks really nice.
Yeah.
So I dig those, and I also think the pants. I still don't love the color of the pants, but they don't look as mustardy as they have in the past, in my opinion. But those jerseys look really.
They're
sharp.
popping.
They look really sharp.
Yeah.
Ray Price with a super chat. Thank you, Ray. Go Irish. I love all the young players. Sean, I think that's probably the fun thing about this team is. There's so many young, talented players in the 2 and 3 deep. It's like, think about it. How long ago would it have been where Notre Dame could have lost their top 2 Vipers and you go into the next game and the guy that replaces them comes out and has 5 tackles, a tackle for loss, forces a fumble that he recovers in the air. I mean, think about that, Sean. Josh Burnham hasn't played Viper all year. Hasn't played Viper since last season. Gets thrust in there after missing 3 games with an injury.
Yeah.
And he comes in and dominates. It's like, good Lord. It's the recruiting by this staff and then the development, as we talked about. You got to give a lot of credit to Al Golden.
Yeah.
To be able to get Josh Burnham ready to play that game. I mean, it's about Josh, learning, but the coach has got to get you prepared to go, man.
Yeah.
And he did a great job with that. I mean, Josh went out there today and it's like, what do you mean we're down at Viper? We're fine. I'm here. Junior's here. We're good. We got this. And that was fun. Oh, and by the way, that number 30 on the other side, he does suck. He's pretty good. Was it you that said it? Just every snap, it's like he gets better and better and better.
He made a play, back-to-back plays on a 3rd down. He flashes, wrecks a play because he gets off the block that they tried to set him on the edge. Bounces it outside, they make the stop, and then he comes he's an eyelash away from blocking the punt.
Mm-hmm.
The very next play.
Mm-hmm.
The kid is absolutely phenomenal, man.
Yeah. He's really good, Sean. This is a really talented Notre Dame football team. Really talented Notre Dame football team. Lou Holtz, Thunder, and Bolts, one of my favorite names on here, Sean. Maybe it's just me, but Riley Leonard's throwing motion different today. Seemed like he was decisively stepping into throws with a more compact arm motion. It's not about him changing his motion. This is what he's always done when he throws with conviction. I've been saying this all year. Lou Holtz, Thunder, and Bolts. If you are a subscriber at Irish Breakdown, go watch the video I released after the Miami game. I broke down every single passing play in that game, and I showed when Riley Leonard snaps that ball off and throws it with just don't aim it, just boom, snap it off. That's exactly what it looks like. The reason that you notice it the way you did is because he was doing it more consistently today than he had been. But this is what you saw today is not a different Riley Leonard. It's the old Riley Leonard. This is the Riley Leonard we thought we were getting from Duke. And, you know, you were seeing flashes of it the last few games, Sean. Today we saw it from start to finish. And boy, was it fun to watch.
Yeah, you love what you saw from the kid. You saw the confidence. I don't know. I would love to have been a fly on the wall with the conversations he had with the staff this week. In particular, Mike Denbrock. What was said, the questions that were asked, the retorts, the replies. I would love to have been a part of that just to hear it. But obviously, the light went off. Whatever switch needs to be hit, it got hit. And hopefully this is the quarterback that's here to stay for the rest of the season.
That's the key.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep it going. Trevor Rocket, thank you, Trevor. Hey, man, I just want to let you know you are definitely still in my thoughts and prayers, man, and hope you're doing good, man. I know it's hope you enjoyed today, man. Brian and Sean, job well done, lads. Pat Coogan has found a home at center. Loved what we saw offensively today. The boys need to bring their lunch pail next week against Georgia Tech. 5-2, 5-1. Let's enjoy this one tonight, IB Nation. Yeah, I mean he when you reduce the space that Pat has to play, and he's a better football player, no doubt.
Georgia Tech has a lot more to think about now.
Yes.
That's another thing you have to think about. Their defensive staff has a lot more to think about than they probably thought 2 weeks ago coming to this game.
Like crap, now they're throwing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You gotta be kidding me. You know what I mean? Like, we thought we were gonna be okay. They lost 5, they lost 12. Who's this freaking 40 kid? Where'd he come from? Like, I haven't seen him on film in 3 weeks.
We knew we had to worry about 4, but snap, we got to worry about 24.
Yeah, who's 21? They better 21. Not play 21. Like, are you kidding me? Like, did you see Keegan at the end of the game? You're like, guys, this is their quote unquote fifth running back. Like, this dude starts on over half the teams that Notre Dame plays, right? Like, I know they're good. They got to find a role for Keegan, man. They got to. Could you imagine them doing read zone stuff near the goal line with him and Riley Leonard? Come on, guys. Look, you got to find a role for 21.
Yeah.
He's played twice this year, and every time he plays, you're like, dude, he might be as impressive as anybody that they've had playing this game. Yeah. What was the one play he got hit at the line of scrimmage and turns it into like a little 11-yard gain? You're like, good Lord. That's against their backups. Running behind with their backup offensive line.
Man.
You know what I mean? Like, he is such a dude.
Just trucking people.
He's a dude. Oh, my goodness. Andrew Gilmore, Brian, you have the best board. Thank you. Should Love play more slot receiver? Well, Love should never play slot receiver. I'm being a bit picky here. I'm just giving you a hard time, Andrew. Should he move outside more in the slot? As a running back outside, yes, he should. And I'm giving Andrew a hard time.
That's a 21 personnel.
Yeah, Sean, I've said this all summer, bro. Yes, they should do more 21 personnel. And I wouldn't always put him as the one in the slot. There are times where I would maybe put Jadarian Price out there or motion them out there. I think that's the next evolution of this offense is figuring out a way to get more from 21 and personnel and 20. And I would even say some 20 personnel because Jeremiah Love is – did you see the block he had on Riley Leonard's touchdown?
Yeah.
Did you see his – here's the thing I love about it. I said this, Sean. I coached an All-American receiver back in 03 at Duquesne. He had 51 catches. I think he had 1,147 yards and 14 touchdowns in 11 games. And we played Monmouth, whose best receiver was Miles Austin. And it was my guy that had a 60-yard touchdown route on a slant, perfectly coached, perfectly ran, boom, big play. Do you know the only time he ever made me rewind film in practice or when we were going over game film is when he made a dominant block? Because I'd beat into his head like, this is part of the game, right? Like, you want them to protect for you when we're throwing the ball. You need to do your job when we're running the ball. And that's when you know a kid is bought in to what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Is when he's doing that.
Yeah.
And you go watch Jeremiah Love's reaction on when Riley Leonard, he wasn't pissed that he didn't get the ball. He's like, you asked me to block, and I smacked that dude in the mouth.
Yeah.
And I'm fired up that I did my job the way I did it. It's like, dude, there's some stuff you can do with those two guys on the field together out of 20 personnel. I still want to see the tight ends, but that's a wrinkle that you could have some fun with.
Yeah.
Go tempo out of 20 personnel. That's 20 personnel is 2 backs, no tight ends, 3 receivers.
Yeah.
Whoo, dog. Yeah.
Yep.
It just gives you something else to deal with. But then 21 personnel has a lot of advantages
especially
too.
with both guys being willing lead blockers.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, we saw the now screen today. It was kind of a tunnel to Jeremiah. There's some things he can do in the pass game, some post-snap switch stuff, run that pivot route. Could you imagine how the defense is going to react if Jeremiah comes in a stack motion, he runs that pivot route with Chris Mitchell running the slot fade?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Or KK Smith running the slot. I'm so happy to see KK get in there and make a play today. Like that kid's got some juice, Sean.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, he brings a lot to the table. He brings a lot to the table in that regard. And that's other ways you can get him the ball while not taking Jadarian off the field. And then if you start hit a couple of those plays, now all of a sudden you fake that, you grab it, fake that, they're flying out, and then you do a quick, trap handoff to Jadarian Price or a quick draw handoff to Jadarian Price. That gives you more stuff to like you said, Sean, Georgia Tech's got a lot more to think about now. And then what do you do off of it? Because that's what great coaching is, man. It's like, okay, we're rolling with this. Why did I call the screen pass, the throwback screen against Louisville? Why did I call that? Because that's what coaches do. Okay, this is working for us now. We're doing a lot of sprint out now. Okay, what can we do off of that as we see teams are overplaying it now? Louisville was crashing hard on the sprint out. They had figured sprint out. So what does Mike Denbrock do? All right, cool. Boom. Touchdown. So you start having a little bit more success with Jeremiah Love out in the slot, to Andrew's point, with some slot fade stuff, with some crossers, some screens, some jet motions where you're getting the ball. Now, all of a sudden, you got some stuff off of that you can do with Riley and Jadarian in the backfield. Because the thing, you got Jeremiah Love outside, you still got Riley Leonard and Jadarian Price in the backfield, Sean. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you're hurting for athletes in the backfield because Jeremiah Love's outside. Yeah. It's nuts. So, yeah, I think that's the next evolution, Andrew, is that I would like to see is more of Jeremiah Love moving around. It's almost like combining CJ Prosise 2014 with CJ Prosise 2015 is what I think Jeremiah can be. And who's the OC back then, Sean? Oh, that's right. Mike Denbrock.
You know what? I had to think about it. I thought you were trying to trick me. I'm like,
no, it's my bad.
Is this a Graziano?
I thought it was Mike Denbrock. Am I wrong?
I was about to answer, but
yeah. It's good stuff. Good stuff. Miles Whitaker with a super chat. Thank you very much, Miles. Progress. One step forward, no steps back. Good solid game. You know the best part is no steps back? I don't remember any Notre Dame players getting taken off the field today by the trainer. That was my favorite part of the game, Sean.
That's a great point.
Somebody said, I'd like to see the offense maybe get one more series. And I said, shut your mouth. They better not give any of these starters another series.
Yeah, I did. After the delay, I was like, can they just call this one? Like,
can we go to a running clock, please? Can we treat this like the Blue Gold game? It's on Peacock now. Can we just do a running clock? Get out of here. I was happy that fourth quarter went by pretty quick, though. That was nice. That was very nice. And after watching Gerby Lambert and Tosh Baker play in the fourth quarter, I reiterate that can't be the only option at left tackle.
No.
And if you haven't given Gerby Lambert any left tackle snaps during practice, that's a failure of coaching. It's 100% a failure of coaching.
That's fair to say.
Andrew Gilmore with another super chat. Thank you, Andrew, very, very much. Freeman hasn't had a 6-game winning streak. Do you feel he's growing? Well, let's see how these next couple games play out. Like we said, Sean, yesterday's show, we're going to know we don't know who Notre Dame was coming out of this bye.
Yeah.
They're still evolving for a host of reasons. As I explained, I think it was yesterday. I said, listen, I was talking to a friend of mine, and you and I were talking about this also, I think. the reason I'm more confident this offense can get better, not that it will, because I don't know, but that it can get better, is because you started the season with 9 players in your starting lineup that were freshman or sophomore eligibility, and the only 2 seniors you had were new to the program who were not practicing in the spring, or Riley was very, very limited. Bo could not practice in the spring. There's a lot more room for improvement than you got a bunch of 5th-year, 6th-year seniors returning and coming back like last year on defense. Like by the middle of the season, it's like, okay, this is who you are on defense.
Yeah.
Because you were pretty good. But, J.D. Bertrand wasn't all of a sudden going to be a different player. And Maris wasn't going to Maris was a better player from day one of his 5th year. And he played well. That's why I felt like this group is growing. But again, the whole issue with Coach Freeman has been that it'll look like they're ready to turn the corner and then not show up for Stanford. Looks like they turned the corner. They smacked North Carolina. They beat BYU. They're really rolling here in 2022. Like they've totally got over that bad start to the season, and they're really rocking and rolling, and they're starting to, be a really good football team, man. Like I think they've turned the corner, Sean. I really think they've turned the corner, and then Stanford happens.
Yeah.
And then he wins. He has his first 5-game win streak. You blew out BC the week before. You're 2 weeks removed from blowing out Clemson. You went on the road, beat Syracuse, and then you get beat where you basically trail the entire game against Syracuse. Against USC. You come out last year, you're 4-0, you're rolling, you're blowing people out, and then you drop 2 of your next 3 and almost lose 3 in a row. And then I feel like, okay, they came out of the they came out of Louisville game, they crushed USC, they come out of the bye week, they destroy Pitt 58-7, and then Clemson happens.
Right.
And then they win 3 in a row. They have 3 straight blowouts. They go on the road. They beat Texas A&M in a great win where they were the better team, and then Northern Illinois happens, right? Like, so that's my thing, Sean, is I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to say a 4-game win streak, as impressive as the last couple games have been, does not all of a sudden mean we'll know that when we get through Tech and Navy.
Yeah.
If we're talking about them being 7-1 and playing well coming into that bye, then I'll have a lot more confidence that Coach Freeman has kind of turned the corner. But I do think it's very clear that he's growing. He's definitely growing. And again, I don't know why I'm this way, Sean. I really don't. He looked pissed off the entire game. Didn't he?
I liked it, though.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's when Notre Dame – I don't know why. I don't know what it is. But when Marcus Freeman looks stoic on the sideline, it's usually a game where the team plays that way. When Marcus Freeman is pissed on the sideline, more often than – I literally can't think of a game where he looked pissed on the sideline where they haven't just destroyed someone.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't matter. It was 21-7, 35-7, 4, and he's just like – the whole game just –
what is going on?
And it's like, I like that version of Marcus Freeman.
He's mad
that's when his team plays with an edge.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that's what I felt he was as a D coordinator. And I felt like when he became head coach, he felt like he had to be something different. So he's trying to be the stoic, like I'm just calling. Bro, be yourself.
Yeah.
You're a freaking middle linebacker from Ohio State. You know what I mean? Like, you're not calm and stoic. We see you at practice, bro. Yeah. We've seen you at practice. We know that's not who you are. Be who you are. And you know why I think he's starting to be who you are? And he's being because he keeps going like this when he's yelling at someone. He's very aware that the cameras are always on him. He's just like, F it.
Right.
I'm going to at least be smart enough to be like, you
cover my mouth.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like when he was going off on a Don Schuler, he's like I would have loved him on the other side of that one. You know what I mean? But it's like, be yourself. Like every coach, if you're going to fail being yourself.
Yeah.
Do not look back and say, man, I thought I had to be this way because I was at Notre Dame and it didn't work but no, be yourself.
Yeah.
Because you can't win not being yourself. And so I'm hoping that this continues. And I do think he's growing. And I think the way the team rebounded from the not sharp start is hopefully evidence of that. Is he growing? Yes. Has he turned the corner? Which is me adding on to Andrew's question you didn't ask yet. That remains to be seen, Sean. We're not going to know that till we get overtime.
Yeah.
But he does have a chance to come. If we come out of go into the bye week with Notre Dame still only at 1 loss, it will be Marcus Freeman's longest winning streak as a head coach. And it'll show us something because you will have beaten some decent teams during that stretch. You'll have beaten, a good Louisville team. You'll have beaten a good Georgia Tech team, potentially an undefeated Navy team. who might be ranked by then. So, yeah, let's get in there.
Yeah.
Super chat from Indy Milton fan. Thank you very much. Fun game to watch. Can you put this performance into props for me? Not sure if I'm overhyped. Also, shout out to my guy, Jason Smith and IB squad. I know there's a lot of people that were concerned about Jason Smith, and I don't get too much, but he's okay. He just checked out a little bit. So we were glad we found that out last night. He's actually okay. Sean, put this performance into perspective for him. Not sure if I'm overhyped. I would say, no, be hyped. I mean, you can look at Stanford and say they're not that good of a team. They're 2-4 now, but still appreciate how this is what good teams do to teams like that. I don't know. I mean, Vanderbilt's better than Stanford. I don't know that they're that much better than Stanford. I mean, they did lose to Georgia State. You know what I mean? But Bama overlooked them and came out and, sleptwalked through that game a little bit. Notre Dame had a chance to do that. Ask Syracuse if Stanford can bite you in the butt if you don't play your game. You know what I mean? Sean, a team can not be good and you still say, hey, look, you handled your business. Notre Dame has a 59-point win over a Power 4 team and now a 42-point win over a Power 4 team.
You have every reason, if you don't want to be overhyped, be hyped. Because Leonard gave you everything you need to be hyped moving forward about this team offensively. That's it. What you saw from the quarterback position today is enough to be hyped moving forward.
Sean, is that the biggest takeaway you had from this game? Because I'm torn between that and then what the D tackles did. I'm torn between those two things.
Well,
as being the biggest takeaway for me. I kind of lean towards the quarterback.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
But the D tackles were so good, Sean. And it was so nice to see that from them.
It is the biggest takeaway because the D tackles just got back to the form that we've already seen. Yep. We had not seen the quarterback.
Not in a Notre Dame uniform. That's the point. Yeah.
So absolutely, that's the biggest takeaway.
Yep. Super chat from Gregory Perez. Happy to see Denbrock aired out, while also not losing the running identity of this team. Do you think the depth of the wide receiver room will be a strength versus Georgia Tech? Also a reminder to hit that like button. Yes, sir. Sean, you made a good point earlier. I have used this expression before, and I wish I've seen it more from Notre Dame coaches, but the phrase I've used is you need to sometimes reverse engineer your offense. Coaches have this thing, you run to set up the passing game, and sometimes you need to reverse engineer your offense, and sometimes it's the pass game that you need to use to set up the run game.
Yeah.
And today, Mike Denbrock understood, yes, we're a running football team, but we're also not going to go out there and just beat our heads into a brick wall so we can prove some point about how we can run on a team that's really good stopping the run. Why? Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's get them on their heels. Let's push the tempo. Let's get the ball outside. Let's throw the ball down the field. Let's do all these different things, and we're going to get them on their heels a little bit, and then we're going to go at them. It's great coaching. And so I think the way you described that earlier, Sean, to me goes to what Gregory is saying here is like they were willing to attack them in different ways, throw the football, but it was always geared towards we're going to get you on your heels and then we're going to come right at you. And then as soon as we start running the ball, then what do they do?
Yeah.
12 person. I think that I believe the pass to Bo Collins, I believe, Sean, that was out of 12 personnel.
The 50-yarder?
Yes. I believe that was out of 12 personnel. I'm going to have to go back and look at, but because they had Bo Collins and Chris Mitchell together in a slot alignment, and it was off of a play action pass. So you got play action everybody's been wanting. Well, why did he run a play action pass in this situation? Because they had been giving the quarterback better time. But, you've been running at them. You had just had the 39-yard touchdown run. Jadarian had a long touchdown run. They're now creeping down. You go 12 personnel, play action over the top. But it was beautiful. Yeah. You pass to set up the run. The run starts working. You throw the ball over their head. That's why Mike Denbrock is one of the highest paid offensive coordinators. That's what we want to see. And why did we see that today, Sean? Because he had more confidence in his quarterback and he had more confidence in the offensive line as they got going and were protecting better. That's why you do it.
If they do those two things moving forward, this will continue. Protect and let him play his game.
All right. Got a super chat from Irish for Life. All we need is love. Ba, 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 ba. All we need is love, love. All we need is love. That's not all they need. They need a lot more than that. They need an offensive line. They need receivers, but it is very nice to see. Nice little Beatles song there.
Yeah.
Justin with a super chat. Go Irish. Great win to build on. Absolutely, Justin. Thank you for the super chat. Tyler Evans, does Bryce Young play like his dad did at Notre Dame, Sean?
Different games, but as far as the talent and then the motor, absolutely. Absolutely. You see the pedigree, you see the bloodline coming through, but I just think they have a different style of game. I think he's, you know what? Let me stop short. Because I almost said he's more explosive. I definitely think he's more athletic. But you have to realize Bryant Young that we saw once he took the field at Notre Dame was totally different than freshman Bryant Young that showed up, who played linebacker in high school. So, you know, he probably mirrors the athleticism that his dad had at this point after, you know, and then his dad added weight to be able to play on the interior of the defensive line. So that's actually a good question.
I'd be curious what Bryant thinks about that. Like,
Yeah.
I would say that I would, if it was up to me, if I were comparing him, and again, I only know what Bryant Young was kind of later in his career.
Right.
Bryant Young was an incredible talent. I would say that Bryant Young was obviously a more dominant player than Bryce is now, but Bryce is a freshman. Bryce has a much longer frame.
Yeah.
And I would argue that Bryant was more powerful. Bryce is a more explosive athletic. I think it's fair to say that, Sean.
That's fair.
You know, so will he be as good as his dad? One can only hope, because his dad was special.
Man.
Very special. Absolutely. Christopher Hardy, super chat. Thank you, Christopher, so much. Go Irish. Constant improvement on both sides of the ball. As a friend of mine always says, onward and upward. And then Christopher Hardy also had another one. He says, remember that, friends, please. He was told he has cancer. Oh, man. I'm sorry to hear that, Christopher. Definitely keep him on our prayers, man. But I love his positive outlook, and I hope he continues that as he battles cancer. We got the last couple super chats here, Sean. We got one from Nita Beta. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your super chat. Hey, we are rocking with Coach Freeman. See y'all next week in the ATL. Well, I'll be there. John, I think you'll still be in Chi-Town next weekend, correct? Watching the game.
I will.
So, yeah. So
on the post-game show.
Yep. It's a big game, Sean. It is. This is a much better Georgia Tech team than they played last time.
Yeah.
And by the way, I was told that there were a lot of the tickets from Ticketmaster and different places were given back to Mercedes-Benz. So there's actually some really good tickets on sale at face value.
Yeah.
So if you've not bought tickets for this game, I believe you can buy them from the Mercedes-Benz, directly from Mercedes-Benz. A friend of mine told me about that today. So check that out. Still a lot of tickets on sale. And he told me as of today, they're on sale at face value. So definitely check that out. Yeah. And then the last one from Tom Frawley. Thank you so much for your super chat, Tom. I'm looking forward to your intel on Georgia Tech. Thank goodness Indy is relatively healthy this week. Relatively healthy compared to where they were a week ago. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't suffer that we know of any new injuries. Like, we didn't see Jordan Faison today. This is the other thing too, Sean. Notre Dame did what they did today with no Jordan Faison.
Mm-hmm.
Mitchell Evans did not play much, wasn't targeted at all in the pass game. No Charles Jagasol, no Ashton Craig, no Billy Schrouth, no Jordan Patojo, no Boubacar Traore, no Jason Onye. And they still went out and dominated Stanford. Yeah. A team that beat them. Last thing for me, Sean, this is the context. This was a much better Stanford team than the one that beat Notre Dame 2 years ago.
Wow.
And Notre Dame, I wholeheartedly believe that. The team 2 years ago that beat them was 1-5.
Yeah.
And their only win at that point in time was over Colgate.
Colgate, that's true.
They had not won a football game over an not a Power 5, an FBS team in over a calendar year. They had finished the 2021 season with an 18-point loss, a 3-point loss, a 7-point loss, a 45-point loss, a 21-point loss, a 30-point loss, and a 31-point loss in Notre Dame. They started the 22 season with a win over Colgate. Then they lost by 13 to USC, 18 to Washington, 18 to Oregon, 1 point to Oregon State, and then they beat Notre Dame. And then a week later, they beat Arizona State by a point. Then they lost by 25 to UCLA, 38 to Washington State, 35 to Utah, 7 points to Cal, 9 points at home to BYU.
Wow.
This year's team has lost to Notre Dame and Clemson, 2 top 15 teams.
Yeah.
They lost to Virginia Tech on the road without starting quarterback, and they only lost by a touchdown to TCU, and they beat Syracuse on the road. Syracuse is currently, I believe, 5-1. I don't know what Syracuse did today against NC State. I think they had a small lead the last time I saw. Maybe it was tied. but Stanford beat them. And if you watch that game, it wasn't a fluke, Sean. It was not a fluky football game. So this is still isn't a great. Syracuse is currently up with 12 minutes left on NC State 17-7, and they're about to score at NC State, and Stanford beat them.
You point this out. That head coach at Syracuse meant a heck of a lot to that Georgia secondary. I'll just leave.
Oh yeah, because that Georgia secondary is. Trying to think of an appropriate way to say this, Sean. Not good. They gave up 31 points today to Mississippi State.
Yeah.
This is Michael Van Buren, who I believe is a true freshman, threw for over 300 yards against Georgia today. Yeah. This is a Mississippi State team, Sean, that at home lost to Toledo 41-17, and it wasn't that close. It was 35-3 at one point in time. Mm-hmm. And they gave Georgia a game today. I've been telling people, man, that's not a team that people think it is.
Yeah.
But it's been an interesting day of football, Sean, as I'm looking at some of these scores, man. Tennessee and Florida are tied at 17-17.
Yeah.
Tennessee's got it 3rd and 4 at their own 31-yard line with 18 seconds left. Vanderbilt is up on Kentucky, just kicked a field goal with 8.5 left on Kentucky to go up 20-7 on the road. The fight in Clark Lee. I'm so happy for Clark Lee, Sean. I like when just genuinely good people have success.
Yeah.
And Clark Lee is look, I said this on a tweet, Sean. Y'all know I'm not a big Brian Kelly fan. And I think Brian Kelly made one of the worst hires in Notre Dame history when he hired Brian McGorder. But you know what, man? Next 3 hires were pretty good. Now, I know he didn't make the Mike Elko hire. Yeah. Jack Swarbrick did. But he did make the Clark Lee hire, and he did make the Marcus Freeman hire.
Yeah.
And those guys right now are 5-1, 5-1, and about to be 4-2 as head football coaches. You got to give the man credit for that.
Yeah.
You know? And, I give credit where credit is due, and those guys are doing a pretty darn good job.
Back-to-back wins over Alabama and Kentucky.
On the road.
That's solid.
On the road.
Yeah.
Against Kentucky today. That's real solid. As long as there's 8.5 left, but and then Bama barely beat South Carolina today.
Yeah.
It's been a wild day of football, man. Iowa State just went up on West Virginia 21-10. And Syracuse has got 3rd and goal now against NC State. Dominant win for Clemson today. Pitt stayed undefeated with a 2-point win over Cal. Louisville had a comeback win over Virginia to get back winning 4-2. I always hated it when Brian Kelly used that winning is hard thing because he just used it in a way to kind of excuse poor play. He wasn't wrong, though. Winning is not easy.
Yeah.
It is not easy. Big win for BYU. I'm not a big Scott Satterfield fan, but he's doing a nice job this year at Cincinnati. And a big win for killing Dillingham last night over Utah.
Oh, that was a huge win over Utah.
Yeah, they're 5-1 now.
Yeah.
That
little jitterbug they have at running back.
Oh,
he's tough.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Ohio State's beating Oregon 31-29. UCLA's up on Minnesota 10-0 at the half. I got to watch the Penn State game, Sean. Penn State won in overtime 33-30. And your team, your alma mater, came back and won in OT, beat Illinois. Illinois beat Purdue 50-49. Huge win for Iowa today. 40-16 win over Washington. And then Rutgers got destroyed at home by Wisconsin 42-7. Luke Fickell needed that win bad, Sean.
Yes, he did.
He needed that win bad. Hey, we got a final super chat, Sean. This one just came in. Indy Lou 22. Thank you very much, sir. Been in a tractor cab all night. That's awesome, man. Love America's farmers. There's no doubt about that. But able to make it home in time for IB. Thanks for going late after the delay, guys. Brian, are you going to check on the Tiger Bait chat after another big game loss? Hey, it ain't over yet, buddy. Okay, they're only down 3 right now. Okay, so let's see what the fighting Brian Kellys do. There's 2:59 left in the third quarter, and they're only down a touchdown, and they're in Ole Miss territory. So, look, I'm actually, Sean, it's like, what do I like more, me looking good or Brian Kelly losing? And I like me looking good better. And I picked LSU to win this football game. So, I'm not going to say that I'm rooting for LSU, but I just say I won't be upset if they win this one because it'll make me look better. And I also think from a Notre Dame standpoint, Sean, there's more potential losses on the schedule for LSU than there are Ole Miss.
Yeah.
So if they can hand Ole Miss a second loss, They still got to play Bama. They still got to play A&M. They got some potential losses under their belt. Yeah. So I'm not upset if LSU wins this football game. I'm not, because I think that's good for Notre Dame. And then I'm right, because my whole staff picked Ole Miss, Sean.
Everybody.
So everybody except for me. I had a friend of mine who said let's just say he's upset that I don't plan to vote for the person that he is voting for in the election. So he's a little upset with me about that. Like, all in good fun. He goes, I can take that. I can't take you picking LSU to win a football game. He's a little salty. And I told Angela this, and I told her kind of like, and she goes, she doesn't even acknowledge the thing I told her about she goes, you picked Brian Kelly to win? You're sleeping on the couch tonight. I was like, dang, what's going on with you people? And they say, I hate Brian Kelly. You know what I'm saying? Like, dang, man. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. No, I did my one Tiger Bait one. I had some fun with that one. I am not going to waste my time with that show tonight. But I will say LSU's driving. See a shot to the end zone. That's out of bounds. Fourth down, they're going to have to probably kick a field goal. Unless they're going to go for it. I don't know where they're at. That's their field goal range. So anyway, Sean, buddy, I appreciate you being with me today.
Man, enjoyed it.
See, I told you. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, is it too late to go get her some of her favorite ice cream?
Yeah. Hey, I got some tubs in the freezer. So our pumpkin spice ice cream. So I'm
preparation. Well prepared.
Yeah, no doubt. Did get a super chat from Hunter Hall. Where did we fail with Deuce? They didn't fail at all with Deuce. Deuce made a decision to go somewhere else. There's literally nothing I think Notre Dame could have done differently in order to change that outcome. That outcome was going to be what it was going to be. Sometimes things just don't go your way. And, I gave a long intel piece on how that one went down on the message board at boards.oursbreakdown.com. You can go read that. I really don't plan on spending any time. I saw that comment. I don't plan on spending any more time on Deuce Night on this channel. I only bring it up now because I do appreciate you giving a super chat. But yes, some things cannot be recovered with ice cream. Sean, here's the thing, though. That is a flat out lie. My wife is not telling you the truth, because absolutely everything can be recovered with ice cream with my wife.
Right.
So
I was just going to suggest you get as many pillows as you can.
Trust me, I'm already planning to not be in the bed tonight, buddy.
Angela's the best.
Yes, she is. Well, Sean, I appreciate you being on with me, man. Everybody have an awesome rest of your night. Go finish watching some of these great games. LSU just kicked the field goals now 20-16. Ohio State's up on Oregon by 2 points, 31-29. Right now, looks like does Oregon got the football? Who's got the ball right now? Yes, Oregon's got the football. They're driving on the Buckeyes. Look like might be a PI here on the Buckeyes. So it's crazy weekend. Notre Dame 49-7 over Stanford. Everybody. We'll be back. I'll at least be back tomorrow night with upon further review. I don't know if I'll be doing a solo show tomorrow or if I may have somebody else with me. But Vince is going to be out for the count this weekend. He's got a lot of different family things going on. But we will have one tomorrow night upon further review after I get in the film. But Sean Davis, thank you for joining me, my friend. I appreciate you very much. I hope you all enjoyed the show. Go kick back, relax, watch some football, get ready to watch upon further review tomorrow night. Stay safe, stay blessed. We love you all very much. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this podcast. And of course, take some time to sign up for the message board at boards.oursbreakdown.com. There is no better way to support us and what we do than to sign up for the message board at boards.oursbreakdown.com. Thank y'all. Have a wonderful night. We'll talk to you again very soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.